Palisades, they're trying to go all the way to number 1. So it's going to be a cat and dog matchup.
We're going to win today. We're going to win this game. We're going to win the next game. It's done.
Just around some of these angles. You plant for backside. You think they're coming through garage. Where are they going to be coming from? Off of the double box. They're actually going to bring the rolling thunder. And they drop it down 78. Trying to be able to stick into it. They actually missed the stuff. They're going to use the T-dodge down air and Nev for the opposite end. They're looking to continue to juggle them upwards. The upward smash and they're gone. Coming all the way back from down 3-1. They get the job done.
We love close games, but 4-4. Oh, it was They rise to the top. The cream rises to the top. They are here.
Download our app today and you can start your path towards learning about financial literacy.
Second time to the box, Nutella, the kill isn't there. They're looking for the opposite sidewalk. There it's gone. And JT Williams, a great push by South Mech.
Now that was
Flamethrower will miss. He's gonna be able to jump, drag them down, force them, get a grab, throw them forward, and this is gonna be continual push into the ball. They get the smash. Oh, they come back from 3-1, get 1-0, and that'll be set 2 for Myers Park.
Adding money to that goal to save up and complete it. Anywho, moral of the story, you can do anything that ChatGPT can do. It's just that ChatGPT is automated.
Your 2023 champion for app development, the Garinger Wildcats.
back down he goes. Needs to be, but Nick there in support. Nobody back again. Olympic on 4-0. It's the Rocket League Finals about to heat up. Done it 4-1. The count's here, down under 5 seconds. Olympic, your CMS Varsity Esports and Sim League Rocket League champion. They did it. Look at their faces, happy as could be. As Vigo Mari now trying to beat it, little back to the edge, he now has positional advantage. And see you later. That's game here. As it's Nev off the edge of the stage, and you see the reactions now. What a finish. Stronger on the defensive side, still outnumbered, or are they? Backside, and he wants to make an even sacrifice, popping off the 3K, has made it a 2-1 advantage, and has Empress in hand if they want it, they don't need it.
Oh, it's a rough position. Do we love Fortnite? Do they love themselves just enough? They are cornered, and they're up in heaven, and that's where they're gonna stay. There's your Butler Bulldogs. The comeback is Drew and done. Pumas, they came so close.
Howdy, howdy, y'all. Welcome to the VESL Fortnite Regionals. We'll be focusing all week long on a series of qualifiers before we introduce these lovely players to potentially their shot at a $12,000 prize pool. Today, it starts here in the eastern regions of North Carolina in our Coastal Clash. I am Zephyr. This is Vaudable, and we're here to bring you some Fortnite.
That we are, Zephyr. It's going to be an electric time tonight and through the next couple of days of these qualifiers. Only the top 4 teams for each regional event is going to make it forward into those state championships. And that's going to be where it comes down to the wire for all these teams. But not just in Fortnite. There's plenty of other games that are being played. Overwatch, Call of Duty, Madden, Rocket League, Smash Bros. All the competitions that you could want to participate in high school. I wish this was around when I was in high school. So everyone in North Carolina, if you are into any of those games, make sure you go and sign up for those events.
Yeah, they're not starting here today, not even just this week, but as we make our way through the majority of the fall, you'll have potentially the opportunity if you want to compete in any one of those. But before we get into the match series today, let's take a look at some of the teams that we have competing in our Day 1 qualifier. out to me and the fans of Tarboro there. I think I've recognized it somewhere else beforehand.
Definitely. I like the CCHS ones myself. I mean, we all think about the Roman Empire a lot, and that definitely reminds me of it. But we do have the first set to go here for drop number 1 of 5 that we'll be going through today. Battle Bus, everyone is locked and loaded on it. We have 50 players in the lobby, 14 teams locked and loaded this go around. Got everyone we could. Some of them will have 3 players in their team, so we'll see exactly where people are going to be dropping and how far these teams are going to be performing themselves. And already loving the overrated bot name, because a lot of people like to call themselves bots like they just have like the greatest name in the world, or they are just mindless when they are playing the game themselves. So hopefully it's the former rather than the latter for this player.
Yeah, a little bit of thought potentially necessary here, but before we really get into the action, let's discuss a little bit of this format, especially before we see some of our competitors compete, right? We will be working on an alternative scoring system, a little bit more heavily weighted if you're used to the regular systems that you see in Fortnite. Our Victory Royales were 30 with the diminishing down to second with 25, third 23, and the rest a point differential as we make our way through. One notable factor, though, being the fact is that we do equivalate both of those kills, or any of those kills, for 2 points.
Yeah, each elimination will be 2 points, so that's going to be a big thing to look out for, especially with it being squad, so that you can have as many eliminations as possible if there are as many players as there are here. But it looks like already we had our first elimination go through, 49 out of 50. Didn't quite see exactly who it was, but we are already getting into those. Yeah, may have fallen off. That's definitely a thing that's happened, but luckily you can get those revives out, especially in this game mode.
Yeah, one of those things that can come through at any given chance, and something that we'll be looking for as some of our teams begin to set the pace for themselves. We will only be working with 5 games today, 5 chances to shoot your best shot and find your way into the top 4. Remember, these are qualifiers. We aren't sending any money home today. You have to earn your spot in the state finals.
So we are actually taking a look at Southwest Edgecombe. I always love seeing the emoting coming out here already from this player. Cupers, I guess you could say they're equippers. Either way, them, Titanium Bear, and Overrated Bot playing on the A team from Southwest Edgecombe High School. So we get to see exactly if they are better than the other 2 teams that are out there. We'll keep our eyes on the feeds to see how far they survive compared to their Patriots. But 3 teams means you have pretty good chances with 14 teams to try and make it into that top 4. So you expect some of these teams who are these schools that are fielding 3 teams to have maybe better odds, but it really is going to come down to that gunplay. And you already see 2 big eliminations coming out for ECD Dark.
Yeah, some early elims picked up here. Hopefully we get the chance to jump on over and potentially check out some of that action in just a moment here, but a very quick and easy start there. I believe not just 2, but potentially 3 in the hands of ECD Dark.
And speaking of the other Southwest Edgecombe High School teams, that's Team C with ECD Dark on it, who was able to get those early eliminations. So already racking in a couple of points here and there for their team, but now we're cruising on over to a different squad here, using the lightsaber. I mean, I love to see the different abilities that have been implemented from different media in Fortnite as the game has evolved. I mean, pizza you could use to get your shield up now, probably just an homage to not Teen Titans, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's just so many pop culture references that have just been downloaded and uploaded into Fortnite itself.
And they've made themselves pretty strong and apparent, not just as a pop culture reference, but also a weapon here. Now, at least for Notlek and crew, they are only a handful of steps away from one of our other residing teams. The first to make it towards building, but still taking the time to loot up. They got to be careful. I don't think they know this. They've got the shots immediately as Lex steps out here, caught with his pants down. It's one quick source to use there with the ice wall up to give them a minor source of cover, but taking all of that damage is nowhere you'd want to be.
Not exactly what you want to be having happen here. Deflecting these shots that are coming out. There goes the down for their teammate, and they're down as well. Not the best way they want to start things out here, but the team we were watching at before that we switched over from, the South Highcom School, was able to go forward. They have all the mats that they needed so that they could build up and maybe build their way to victory already. The rest of their teammates getting those knocks and finishes on this group.
Trying to see if we can get some vaults here to get a climb up, but the high ground has been taken, at least for the moment. Quickers can take some time with a bit of that mini to get some of the shielding back up, and immediately before that, Splash will be caught caught out. Crazier Dandy, the one to find the full elimination here, cleaning that one up as well for a nice refresh.
Nice to see from Crazier Dandy getting that one there too. And hello to us for a second as we switch over the cameras for a moment as well. But so many quick eliminations that we just saw early on in the opening salvo of them getting their mats, getting their just items as they could loot here from their opening drop spots. But really seeing the competition heating up so quickly and the different strategies, some people focusing on getting those mats so that they can build around and then eventually have the high ground, because it's all about the high ground. But even with the builds, it didn't matter too much when your box is just beset upon, as you saw happen there to the Southwest Edgecombe High Team A, as they got taken down pretty quickly as well.
Still, though, they do lead with some of the numbers advantage, and hopefully we can jump back in and spy how the resolution to that fight occurred, because to be honest, it was pretty straightforward at their advantage before we saw Quippers go down in the midst of all of that there. Even still, having 3 or at least 2 of your squad mates up to potentially finish the job should be enough. But I think teams are now kind of getting used to a little bit of the tempo here. As for us, though, at VESL, we are taking a slight detour as we're working with some minor spectator bugs. Once those are resolved, we'll hop back into that first match as quick as we can.
That we will, and nice to see exactly where these players are kind of trying to figure out exactly where they want to focus. It looked like it was somewhere between Shady Silts and Brutal Bastion where we started seeing the majority of the action between these teams. 40 players left currently as we're getting updates from our producer in the background. So still pretty early on as the storm was even just settling in, and it didn't really take too much time for teams to find each other, because that's something we were talking about earlier on, Zephyr, is that we were kind of waiting to see how quickly or how slowly these teams in a smaller team lobby would take to find each other and fight. And well, they know the placement's going to be important, but those eliminations with the 2 points that are granted for each elimination is going to be so crucial too.
And that can be absolutely huge. Finding your way into getting just those 2 points alone, a full squad, 8 total. I remind folks at home that it is literally a 2, 3, even less than 1 point difference through most of the positions. Where you can set yourself above the rest is who you can accumulate, who you can take out, and where you find your fights here as you make your way through.
Yeah, we're using a backup spectator currently, so that's why you see the POV of someone who has been eliminated, as we had to make sure we had someone there just in case the spectator tool wasn't quite working to our favor. But you can see in this squad that we're currently spectating, 2 of the players are down, so we were going to try and see if they could go for a revive of some sort, and then you go from there afterwards. But Deadshot, How, and Unknown Kylek are still raring to go and see what they can do for their team.
This will be Washington High Team A here that we will be watching at least for the extended period, especially as we may be trying to fix some of those bugs. But I'm a big fan of Washington, as anyone might be, and if they've already found a wipe, I promise you they'll probably find some additional action at least in the future.
We can already see in the future, and now it's the Rocket Ram in action. We were talking about this too. This is one of the more, I guess, kind of meta items that are out there just for maneuvering around, but also it's so effective because you can readjust yourself when you're coming down and then blow up buildings and builds across the map and do exactly what's necessary from there. And launching up as well, then using the Rocket Ram, there's so much maneuverability that you can get with that. So now we're going to be taking a look at a different squad and see exactly how this team is doing as well.
Little bit of the storm coming in here, going to be at least the first oppressor for our friends in crew. Going to take some time to get group backed up before they continue to find their way forward in the zone. Once again, consistently, we do see a lot of the pickups, especially around the Sabres that be. Definitely prized possession of many of the rosters out here.
This looks to be the West Craven High School team that is on our screens right now, trying to see who they can find and face off against. As you can see in the top right too, only 35 players remain. Still some decent squads that are out there. One player that we're spectating currently hasn't really been able to get an elim yet, so they're just getting all the mats necessary so that they can build up towards the late game. They're kind of close to the edge of the zone, so they might want to go closer towards that next circle, because as time ticks down, so it does the amount of room available for these teams to navigate. And well, it's a pretty nice loadout that they have so far, but there's always better loadout and better loot awaiting you, hopefully, as things close in.
And one thing I do want to see here from teams, especially as we talk about the low number that does exist in this lobby, especially with some of the early elims taking place, is really taking the time to set yourself up for greatness. I know we do have some designated mats and collectors when it comes to some of these rosters out here, but really hitting that 150 for your builds is going to be super important when we talk about that late game, especially if you're given the time to do so, right? A lot of these teams aren't going to be facing much of that early pressure, knowing that the map is a little bit more flexible.
Now we just got to see what the game plan is for this team. I guess, as you're also seeing on the left side, JD on Zaza has gotten so many eliminations this go around, and trying to figure out exactly which team that player is from, because that's the team to look out for. That is New Bern High Team B, who keeps getting all these eliminations. So we definitely need to keep an eye out for that squad, as they've been getting so many eliminations throughout all of the past like 5 minutes or so. And they're going to be the ones to look out for, racking up those points in the eliminations and maybe potentially the victory round.
Drew and JD both on their way to potentially more than just Zaza, potentially a victory like you said. And even surprisingly, someone walking in here with the victory crown on their back. They're going to pick that one up for fun, as we will continue to see some action light up here. Obviously, we do wish we could provide you with the direct coverage, but for now, it is going to be New Bern. Not quite their Team B, but Team C now picking up some additional eliminations. So, one of the first teams making names for themselves. And now, as we pop back on over to our original foray, it looks like we walk into the remnants of some action.
That's always fun to do. Whenever you see a fight go down, you don't really have the best builds or the best weapons, and then try to pick things up. But that's what you got to be careful about too. Sometimes it's a good trap. You leave the loot on the ground, you wait for somebody to go for it. If you saw some shots going in and maybe some NPCs firing off at those players, well, you just got everything waiting for you. Try and take down those players. And you already see one of the players was knocked on the other side with a rifle, and not too much on this side for this squad to really worry about after those opening shots.
West Craven High here going to take some time to get healed back up while they have the opportunity. As those all do come through, they've got themselves at least a singular or nice box to work with. And we do have to admit, having a bit of that loot available gives you the time to get yourself reacquainted, avoid some of that early damage, and once now all 4 members are back in play here, keep on moving forward.
And it looks like we're around Frenzy Fields, going towards the northeast, maybe towards the mega city for this circle, to see exactly where these players are going to be ending up towards the final part. Looks more towards the bridge near Rumble Ruins. Some shots are coming out from the building across the way, using one of the sticky grenade launchers, which has been pretty effective and also more recently nerfed in one of the patches that came out this past month. And you already see the builds going through, the fights going down, and we got a spectator working here for a second as we see these teams try to climb and try to go to their best ability to maybe just slice and dice is a good strategy to take these builds down with that saber.
Love this double height acquainted here, trying to slide back on the hill. Will be quickly punished. We'll see if once more can do it again. You can see the shield breaking there from behind the trees as space has now been taken on both sides. A singular box is being made, but with one teammate once again acquiescing and going for that push back. We'll continue the chase forward here as we start to take our way back towards our cliffside. See if they can get the peek on the interior there, as some heals have come through for now. Just biding their time as the edit's going to come through out opposite side.
Yeah, it looks like they're just trying to see exactly where these shots are coming from and maybe push as best they can. You see a ramp being built up and quickly trying to go right behind them. The initial team who was engaging that we saw quickly getting the high ground as well and not having to worry too much. You see the shots coming out, but eventually something's got to go down. The elim on the original team who was engaging does come through, and you see a rocket ram also come through, destroying that entire platform. Just chaos is unfolding.
But with that numbers advantage finally taken, you're going to see one member look into escape towards the hills here. The rest now beginning to target in, target out, collapse on a bit of their prey before taking off for the hills.
Yeah, you can see the full squad that has came out with the victory here, trying to chase down the competition and maybe wait for them to pop up and get a shot on them or something, as they're re-engaging towards this pond. There was some shots coming out for a second and just trying to see if it's worth pursuing or not. And there's still some chests that are available there for them to loot, but they're just more focused on getting the elims at this point.
And why not? I mean, double for each elim, that as good as one would hope at any given point here. Now, I will say, we are going to be working with a little bit of this free cam for the time being. That does come at the consequence of having some difficulties with the names here, but it's better seeing the action than none at all.
That it is. I mean, we get to see the scenic views of Fortnite, which you
True.
typically don't get to admire as much unless you're up on one of your umbrellas and just deployed as best as you can to glide around the scenery that is out there. And it looks like we are towards the mega city right now that I was talking about. The circle was enclosing, so some good high ground here from the team we were expecting for a second. A team who was trying to build out just got blasted away. Not too much that they could do. I wonder if the elim came out back there, but still good engagement from the squad we're currently spectating.
Yeah, taking advantage of the fact that they have the early take towards height here to play on this advantage, forces that squad you just discussed back towards the storm and back towards this river right here. They don't even have to make major moves. They can bide their time, wait this one out, and allow that storm to do most of the damage here as they continue to take height.
Apparently the high ground team is Zach FN and Xavier, so that's a team to look out for here for these players, but doing what they can to try and stay in the zone too, because this is quickly the storm closing in on all these players, and they don't have the necessary items there to keep themselves alive. It's going to be a struggle.
Losing out on hype for now. Going to see if they can extend just a little bit of time back in that storm to capitalize on some of these slower rotating teams. A build from across the way here. Try to see if they can take advantage, make some breaks occur here before they have to officially move on in. Remember, it still is early on, right? It isn't particularly the most damaging storm. And especially when you're that close, you could take a little bit of time to see where you could potentially capitalize.
That it is these teams quickly trying to get into the zone. And it looks like it might just be a mega city ending depending on where the circle is going to enclose. 26 players remaining, almost at half of the players remaining from where we started, 14 teams, and where things are going to get down to the wire between the players. JD on Zaza again, getting more knockdowns. Xavier too, getting 1-2. And you see the shots coming out here onto this player that we're spectating right now. It's Alex, Xavier, Zakafen, and Monk. They have been doing pretty well for themselves. That was the team we were looking at with the fly cam for a bit, and they seem to have the skills to pay the bills, but need some good placement if they want to also make it into that top 4.
Zach FN here, a little bit separated from the rest of the roster, has to make the quick slide across some of those defensive utilities in the meanwhile to get this one back together to secure themselves at least a nicer position on this next drift outside of Mega City, especially with some of those other rosters taking away that height that they had just once held here. I still don't see no major issue though, continually grouped up, all as for no one quite getting left behind.
This looks to be the Newburn High Team A that we are spectating as well. So that's the team that we've been looking at for the past little bit, and just quickly trying to get away and get some more of those materials and maybe some extra loot here while they're getting whatever's necessary. And hey, extra heals is going to help in the late game because they've been using a lot of those when they've been really quickly engaging in these fights, and they slow down the process so much so when you're stuck in the late game and don't have anything to work with. And now they're sharing the load for their teammates, and that's always a good idea.
Now, I will say we are down to 22 players remaining here. Less than half of what usually exists in this current zone. We get a nice look at that next storm and where it is pulling back towards the mega city, this major metroplex. And that is something interesting when we begin to discuss things like the vertical disparity and, more importantly, the amount of space a squad can take up given how much exists in each one of these buildings. If our zone continues to acquiesce within this realm of space, you're going to leave a lot of openings for teams to get into these nooks and crannies to survive that extra second longer.
It's also going to be interesting, too, if there's anyone on the top of those buildings and they just see people hiding right below them. They can just shoot straight down if they aren't fully prepared and sheltered from the oncoming fire, especially with how many teams are remaining here. 19 players left now. As we take a look at a build fight that's happening here. Well, it's more like a build box fight as they're just trying to keep their builds up and do whatever they can to get some shots off. And really, the team who was engaging first is doing good, but the I think sticky grenade launcher was doing some good damage to the build there, and also just destroying the health bar and probably the shield total of the other team.
Yeah, we started early with a decent advantage into this fight, but the quick return of their own stickies on the opposite side and finally some pushback removes the metal barricade that had put up moments ago. And now finally the assault forward here out from the high ground, beast from below. The boxes are breaking as the assault comes through in full force. Space to space, edit to edit.
Difficult to tell exactly how things are going down inside of those boxes, but trying to get control of the wall is definitely one of the greatest strategies that there is when it comes to build Fortnite, because if you can take control of the wall and edit it at the perfect timing, you can get a shot off, a headshot, and knock them down, and there's nothing they can do about it. So all about controlling the avenues of entry into the box if you're stuck in it like some of these players are.
It is a successful fight, at least for the moment to behold here, trying to break down some of these last boxes on the low ground. Finally successful as the remnants of one are picked up completely alone and below here.
One full team, too. They didn't have much to worry about. I like how they have this synergy with their skin, so they don't really have to have anyone.
Scary.
It is kind of scary. They look like Slenderman. So they're just going out, trying to take on the competition, or they're wearing like those bodysuits you see people, like the green screen ones. That's what I'm kind of expecting here for these players. They could be anywhere and you might not expect it, just the animation there instead. But you can see another team trying to move away from the enclosing zone. And someone has the high ground at the top of that building that's shooting straight down, but they can't stay there for long, as you can tell. But they're going to use the rocket ram to get away, and that's a wise decision because they can maybe destroy what's going down here. Or
It's
just
a bit of a
get as far away
shame.
as they can.
For Unknown, there's only moments to spare,
no.
barely surviving on Slurp Juice in hand. Will try to get that region, but isn't able to with the seconds they have available. Now stuck alone into the single box of space. They'll try to do so once again, but it's a full four-man squad on the opposite end looking to play ball here. Able to at least get the one full regen off here. Do begin to see some of the health and shielding come back in full force.
You are. I don't know how they were able to do that, but you do see it's Alex from that team we talked about before getting a good elimination on the board too. Only 9 players remain, so really just a few squads left here. It's Alex gets another knock on another player. And this team that's still somehow managing to survive. I don't think just hiding in plain sight is going to work for too much longer, but they do have not really even the advantage of the zone because it's going the other direction. They have to move now. The rocket ram's the way to do it, but they took too much time and they're taking damage, and it's going to be easy for them to get knocked here.
Taken out there in the end, down to 7 players left remaining. A bit of height at an advantage. We still will find one grenade to take to the skies for this next rotation, but remember, it is at a man's disadvantage here, even if you are holding out on that height.
Going down to the wire for these players too. The high ground trying to do what they can just to see if they can go for anything. And I think we're getting a little bit of lag here as things are just building up, but we can't really see anything. So maybe we can move on to the other spectator so we can at least see exactly what's happening with these players. But an elimination comes out, I guess, from the zone. But I guess the lobby might have frozen there for these 2 players. And that's really unfortunate if a crash happened at the end there.
I am getting word that it was 4 players left remaining, and we are officially in squads mode. So it might potentially be the ending of the lobby here. Reminder, we do have a little bit of the bug within the Fortnite client right now, so we might have to pull this one back and come together to find those scores at a later moment.
Yeah, we'll tally things as best as we can in the background, and hopefully we can get access to the scoreboard too if that works out. But we don't have access to it right now, so we'll update you as best as we can. Dealing with technical difficulties is always a blast, but as long as the players are having a good time when we get the correct totals throughout that later on, that's all that really matters at the end of the day there. But some of these teams were doing pretty good for themselves. I know one team that we saw popping up across the board for the most part towards the end there was New Bern High Team A, as they were getting so many eliminations. I think they might have been the team that we saw at the end there as well, with how well that team was performing. And Monk was the main player who was looking pretty solid too across the board. And also earlier on, we saw some good teams from New Bern. Actually, all the New Bern
I was
High
saying
teams
all.
were doing
I was
pretty
about to say
good. Now that I
New
was
Bern
looking at
as
it, yeah.
We've got Team A. We've talked about Team B
Team
or
B.
Team C.
Yeah.
All three of these rosters had continued to find eliminations throughout that match. Even if we do not have the exact point total, just seeing the elim feed constantly pop up was more than enough to secure us in that one. Now, here's what I'm hoping. Maybe these scores count. I won't set it out there in stone, but if they do not, it is a great sense for the lobby for each of these competitors to get a feel for it. As for us here on the desk, though, we're going to figure out all of that information when we come back. We'll hopefully be reintroducing the lobbies, getting that spectator working, and continuing on with our Coastal Clash. We'll see you soon. Welcome back to the VESL Regional Fortnite Qualifiers. I'm Zephyr, this is Vaudable. We're working our way back into our Coastal Clash here. We are in a bit of a mix-up regarding that initial game, but I can confirm from this point onwards, every game officially counts.
That's all we need to hear, Zephyr,
There you go.
especially because if we can't see the scoreboard, it's kind of hard to rank exactly where the team's placed. We'd have to manually check everything and hope the schools counted all their eliminations and their placements, which is a lot to ask for these players who are just here to have fun and hopefully qualify for top 4. But I believe we got some schools now into the lobby this time that weren't able to get into the last one. So even more competition, even more players that'll be loading and hopping on and taking their seat on the battle bus, see exactly where they're going to land. The first team that we followed alongside last time started out around Brutal Bastion. It was a mega city ending. So I'm curious where exactly it's going to end off this time for these players. I mean, there's so many crazy scenarios depending on where exactly the storm is going to end and where it moves to afterwards. I mean, we saw towards the end there, Zephyr, even though it might not have counted, that there was players having to move from the city towards the outskirts, and they were just getting messed up, and the eliminations were coming out. But now we get to hop on with E-Dog Killer, Qlexi, and I'm not going to say that last one.
Well, you might not be able to say that one, but at least you could say, as we find their final drops just outside of Creaky Cove. And I will say, all 4 members safely reaching the ground here as they begin to get themselves looted up. This time, hopefully, we will get to see the official way some of these teams collapse, coalesce, and find their way into fights, and more importantly, a lot of those rotations we didn't get to see in the end game. I will say this though, Vod, this last match, that's the only practice you're gonna get.
That it is, and looking at the feed already, Drew on Zaza from New Bern High Team B. We saw New Bern High Team A be the ones that were surviving towards the end. So New Bern High seems to be the school that has all the Fortnite skill and expertise from not just their A team, but their B team when it comes to getting those early eliminations, maybe hot dropping towards other teams and trying to get that done. And you see JD as well picking up one, not Big Red. I mean, you saw them last time doing pretty good for themselves, and Notlek, unfortunately, is not going to be alive too much longer.
Also, one of the first people to additionally fall in some of these earlier matches. Crazier Danny being another member of that Notlek roster there. So, going to be the first team potentially eliminated. I'm still seeing 16 for 16.
That is very true. So it looks like they just had a couple of their members that were eliminated on that one. Not too much to worry about after that for themselves. So I think that might have been the Tarboro High Team B, which might be Malik on that team. Because a lot of these players, they submitted names to us, but it wasn't exactly the names they're going by in game. So we're doing the best that we can with that information. But I always like to see people getting these crates as best they can to maybe get those epic weapons and have some more firepower early on if you exchange mats or get a key available for that too. And really just getting some early metal too is also nice, so that you can use that to have more secure structures that take a bit more damage for them to go down.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest things that we talked about going in from this last matchup here, and it's actually one of the biggest influencers for where you drop and where you make your impact as a roster. Taking advantage of specific locations, given the fact that you know the density of what kind of builds they have, super important.
That it is. Unknown Kylek trying to figure out exactly which team we want to hop on alongside with here, as we're looking at Drew on Zaza, who's got 1 elimination so far. Vicious S also has one too. JD on Zaza has one as well, and we'll get that fixed in just a sec, as unfortunately we already got a spectator bug there, but hey, we have the backup here.
Spec, let's
And,
go.
Yeah, I mean, place 16th, so you can see that there's already at least 2 more teams that were playing this go around compared to the last time. And this is one of the squads I think we saw last time as well, right? Because it's the exact same skins that we saw that one team have, or maybe a lot of teams just have the same skin and they're trying to freak out the competition.
I wonder, I'm not as sure about that one as, once again, it's October, so a bit of spooky season there, and feeling the scare. And for now, just going to be taking their time in the Eclipse Estate, taking advantage of some of those early NPCs to see if they can get the chance of handing themselves some of that better loot. Granted, not quite set up against any other roster for the time being. Will take their time.
So we talked about New Bern High Team A and New Bern High Team B. You just saw on the feed, New Bern High Team C now got on the board with 2 eliminations for themselves for Divine Gray. So, like, the New Bern squad is rolling deep in these lobbies when it comes to getting those early points on the eliminations.
They seem to have the sense of experience here when it comes to the rest of these high school teams. And to be fair, you've got more than enough time in the chances of high school to set yourself up for greatness. It's pretty much ripe for the age of some of our best Fortnite competitors out there. And I guess we'll have to see the New Bern race between their own rosters here in the end.
This seems to be just a team that doesn't want us to know exactly who they are, because neither of these players, we can see exactly where they are from. So it's just a duo that loaded in from one of the teams and trying to see what they can do with just 2 players against the 4 or even 3 that some of these other schools have. It's going to be difficult for them to know exactly how well they can handle these fights. Maybe their gun skill is going to come into play more than anything else. I mean, you can see that they have all the mats necessary. They have pretty good utility available, 1 mini pot and 2 fulls for this player that we're spectating. But let's take a look at one of the other squads out here as well, because you got to see how these teams are doing. And you can see that they don't want to use those suitcase turrets, because they're not really the greatest. You put them down and they only have like 60-foot range, so as soon as someone walks out of it, it blows up in like 7 seconds. And maybe you can use it if you stick it at the right spot and someone's not quite expecting it, but at this stage of the game and with people that are playing competitively, it's not going to really work out too well. So it's wise for them to not really use that.
No, we'll be checking in with Southwest Edgecombe. This was the roster we saw at the beginning of our last lobby, who took down that Lex squad there in their first foray into our regional qualifiers. So this time around, maybe not as aggressive in terms of starting off or finding those elims, but still getting themselves set up for potentially the opportunity to win it.
That's all that matters, is getting those victory royales, getting those eliminations, and making sure that you can place as high as possible. Kind of similar to when you would see with the FNCS. I mean, we don't have as heavily of a number of points as they do when it comes to placements, but still pretty decent, because I think it was 30 for the victory royale and then kind of goes down from there. 25 for second, 23 for third, and then increases a little bit for the other teams that are still remaining out there. 10 points at least for the 16th team, but we have 15 here, so guaranteed 11 points for placement. So that means eliminations are going to help out a lot, even if you don't do as well as you would hope in these couple drops that we have for tonight.
I will say, in terms of what is on the board, though, there's a lot more competitors coming into the second lobby,
True.
At least comparatively to our first here. And while we may not be counting the points for that first one, we're still getting word on that. At the end of the day, you do have the opportunity to potentially accumulate more opportunities for a potentially better standing now that you have more opposition. Yes, it's a little bit harder, but for some of the best rosters out there, all they see is another number on the board.
That they do, especially when we keep talking about that, those 3 New Bern High teams that we've witnessed and how they've performed. And it's always cool how like they've added NPCs into this that you can just get loot from. They're just patrolling the area, unsuspecting, and then you can get all the pots and all the med packs that you would want to make sure you have some late game heals, or even just when you go into the next fight, have something to work with. But you gotta, it's all about loot management at the early stage of the game. You want to prioritize certain things, but you also want to make sure you have enough ammo and good enough weapons for close range and long range, depending on who you're going to be facing off against.
Yeah, and right there we do see, I believe, Wesley pick up that legendary AR off of the expenditure of that NPC just for the moment there to get themselves secured in terms of the best weaponry for whenever they take this next fight, still taking the opportunity to get themselves looted up.
Now let's take a look at the map here too, just to see exactly where this storm is going to be ending up so far, the early stage of this game, so that we can see where the teams are going to make sure that they make their way towards as we see the eliminations coming out. And you can see the team that we're spectating towards Cheeky Compound and some spreading out towards Rumble Ruins a little bit, but this might be a Shattered Slabs ending or towards Relentless Retreat, which would be very interesting if it gets to the water, because that's where things get tricky, Zephyr. If it goes towards the water at the end, you don't know exactly who's going to survive, because if you're stuck in the water with no builds, you're just like a fish that is in a barrel, and it's going to be really easy to be taken out.
Especially more so down that Relentless Retreat area. I don't think we're going to be carrying ourselves all the way down
slabs,
towards
okay.
the south side. Yep, looking more towards that Shattered Slab side. But if we did happen to just find her even on that western edge where we start to touch on the beach's end there, that can be incredibly difficult for some teams to manage, just playing around, getting up and out of what I would consider probably the lowest point you can be in, the opposite of high, on the straight ocean.
Yeah, not exactly where you want to be at all times. Depending on like what season it's been, there's been other options like the boats that you could use or some more utility around that area, but this go around, not really too much you can do for that as far as the vehicles are concerned. But now we're taking a look at the Divine Gray team, which I think was the C squad from New Bern High, and that is exactly who it was. And this team, they've been doing pretty good for themselves as far as eliminations are concerned from what we've seen in the past, but now it's really just going to come down to how long that they can survive, because there's still 43 players, so plenty of squads still alive in this second lobby.
Not quite at the potential spot where you have to be moving in towards that storm, and that's why you see them take advantage of this area just outside of the Eclipse Escapes, where they can take advantage of some of the crafting, getting themselves some of that more direct loot, and on top of that, once again, pushing for that full 150 when we talk about that mat spread. It wasn't entirely necessary in our last lobby. It did end, I would say, actually fairly early in terms of when we start to see that storm really begin to chalk out.
Some solid loot here as well towards Eclipsed, and looking for what they can at the estate and just taking their time, evaluating maybe I want to go for a different weapon. No, I'm pretty satisfied with my current loadout, so we're not really going to go for any of that, but make it more available if they do eventually get into a fight at this point in time and have a pretty decent vantage point of the rest of Eclipse Estate, so they can see if anyone's going to be pushing in towards their territory, wait for a call out from one of their teammates who might have a better angle on it, and then kind of go from there. But they really don't need to push themselves at this point in time, though it does seem like Monk is the one who's doing the best that they can. We saw Luck earlier in that two-person squad, so it looks like that entire squad has been taken out now, and placements are going up a little bit for these players.
And it is once again New Bern High, their Team A, showing up and showing out. It is not just Monk, but also Alex as well, I believe, wiping an entire roster there, at least wherever they may be currently on our map.
That's very true. Those New Bern teams are ready to take the coastal region by storm, the eastern side of North Carolina, as best as they can. And this is just the first of 3 or 4 total, but 3 different ones after today that we'll have for regionals for the teams that are going to be competing across the state. And it's just great to see that this is the first look at the competition and how much is going to evolve till we get to those state finals in early next year.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we'll tune in with another roster here. It is none other than our friends
New Bern High TV.
And they've got themselves some shots to spare just behind them, but with the box set up and the time to look across back towards the creaky, see if they can maybe land some of the shots. For now, it just seems like just rotating out of this one. Want to get themselves set up more directly in that next spot of zone, especially without any really good sight lines to work with.
Yeah, there's so many hills and trees and everything else, foliage that's just blocking the viewpoints, even with people moving in on them. But there you see some players who are right on top of the Rumble Ruins. They are looking at inside the zone. They're going to have to fully rotate around or take them out from this far off angle. It's going to be a tough fight for it. As we get the POV, shout out to the observers on this one. There we go, between these two teams. The Zaza squad versus the other team that's got the top of the ruins, but they're facing the music right now as the bullets are flying right past them.
Whoa! Wes Craven gonna be dropped one there. Granted, with this kind of position on top of the ruins, you have all the time in the world to get the one back into play. Something to note, though, is from behind, it is going to be the in here from the likes of Southwest Edgecombe as they take advantage of New Bern being out of position there with nowhere to call home. No. JD will get at least the one on the back end as they will continue to defend against Peasy and Sir. Get down, but Drew showing up. Go deep into the midst of the fight, right in the face of BS Wesley as our boxes begin to form here. FDL Orange just crawling away for some sense in this 3v3.
JD is back up too, not much to worry about there, but Drew is going to be knocked and I believe eliminated there as well. So JD having to survive and see what they can do, but another squad from the other angle is attacking them too. 4 squads, I think, at this point in time are converging. You can see JD's teammate, I think, backing up on that play, didn't want to really get involved either way, and JD is taking his time to see whatever is happening between these players, but you do see more shots coming out, more loot happening, and Xavier that we talked about before, knocking out Hookah Please on that, and Monk's getting the elimination on that as well. So I guess most of the New Bern High Team A was available in the area too to get some elimination. So the New Bern squads, if one's not doing well, the other one is.
They'll find their way, even if it's against each other here in the end. And we continue to see the feed light up with Zach there. A good return away now, getting out of that low ground, most importantly, before you are capitalized on. We saw it happen to the likes of New Bern Team, B. So Southwest Edgecombe Team C doesn't want to catch the same smoke in their own right, especially even though they actually, I believe, were losing one there.
They're looking at the Divine Gray, who we talked a little bit about before. I think was on the C team from the squad of New Bern High. And we do see shots coming out, and it's a dangerous looking spot between another squad that is coming in as well. Everyone converging in on this high ground as best they can to see who's going to be able to get the best positioning here.
Washington taking themselves up high to take advantage of at least a little bit. Peasy, Wesley, and them getting caught out. Peasy now stuck in between 2 rosters here, unable to follow up on this team. You can see the sticky grenades as now Not Big Red will try to fly forward and take advantage. It's going to be one blast of grenade to get Peasy back into the remnants here of the rest of that Edgecombe team.
This is insanity. It's just the makings of certain teams trying their best to get some vantage points as well, using the rocket ram to make sure that they can go up high and see if there's any other players that they can't quite see from the angle. They might have spotted some of the players who are still down below, and you do see some shots coming out between Peace and Enderwish as they are getting fired upon as well. The push scroll is getting pushed from behind by BS Wesley. And there's another squad also right on the edge of the zone too, trying to get some shots on, but that's going to be a dangerous spot to be in. They have to rotate now, otherwise they're likely to get eliminated.
New Bern Team C here finally forced to face the music as the storm does officially close in here, moving as their shields do get knocked out just a bit. The next to follow through is going to be Edgecombe just ahead of them there, losing out on the minor bit that they were able to secure. But now I think a little bit more interested in potentially cleaning up the remnants of New Bern C. Kurtuk, they're going to be finding their way down. They do not want to have to deal with Washington's height on the opposite side, so them also dropping into the valley that lies below is, hey, JD from New Bern Team B cleaning up Team C on his lonesome here.
And I think he's the only one that was remaining for the squad too. Not too much that he could really do against it. And he's just trying to stay alive and get away from NUB Utopia, who is pushing on them. A one-on-one situation did knock them down pretty heavily, and trying to do all that they can to force some extra damage, forcing the issue there. As you see Drew on Zaza coming back into the fight, and the Zaza squad is assembled to try and take on NUB Utopia, who did get all their health back, but not for long as they are getting converged upon and eventually going to get eliminated there.
Oh, but it is Orange who gets dropped in the same amount of time here, out and across from, I believe, our friends from the Edgecombe, North Edgecombe Team C. I believe so. So on the, or my apologies, Southwest Edgecombe Team C here, taking shots from afar. Vicious does arrive, but I don't think they caught enough time to get Orange back into it, so potentially playing as a 3-man from this point forward.
Looking pretty good for themselves. You can only see Divine Gray as well from New Bern High Team C. So like the Team C's are converging on Team B here for New Bern High, as they have a pretty good realm of maneuverability in this center of the zone. Divine Gray is just biding their time in this puck. They're not going to push any issue. They're just going for placement at this point, especially if they're the only one left here. And the rest of the players from New Bern are just trying to see if they can feel out where the rest of the competition is, see if any shots come through, because that'll be an indicator of exactly where they need to go. Some good shots onto ECD Dark, but they weren't able to put enough pressure on them to get the knock, but valiant effort nonetheless.
I believe that might have been a bit of that reboot there to get ECD Dark back into the game for the rest of the Southwest Edgecombe Team C here. Now they are officially at a 4-man advantage as once again it is JD on the to continue pushing the metal here. We saw this again in what was the remnants of New Bern's Team C, and then we saw the rest of the Zaza roster continue to show up and then assist JD in cleaning that team.
Yeah, Southwest Edgecombe High Team C are doing the best that they can to group up. JD on Zaza backing up makes sense to get some more time for their teammates to move forward, but you can also see another team here coming through. That is the Team A from New Bern High. New Bern High Team B backs off. New Bern High Team A has the high ground and is looking to dissect the players who are right below them, but they are facing some pressure from New Bern High Team B.
Monks getting an opposite angle there on the other side of the height as Zach, Xavier, and it's Alex will take complete control here. I don't think they know exactly what lies below them with Southwest Edgecombe, but I'll tell you what, when it comes down to the edits that are taking place, they have to have some level of understanding here. You might not see the stats on the board, but we are down to our final 12 players left alive in our lobby.
I think there's one single player remaining who's not in this competition. That might be Divine Gray from New Bern High Team C that we talked about earlier. That's not anywhere near here. But we do see the A team from New Bern High and Southwest Edgecombe High Team C converging on each other to see what they can do here to get the eliminations. And it looks like New Bern are doing the best that they can, and the zone's not going to be working out at all for Southwest.
They will take themselves down with one grenade to push forward here, but it will come at the cost of ECD Dark here. New Bern Team A now officially at that numbers advantage as they will continue to play from height and just slowly choke things out. Remember, this was the roster who technically officially won that first practice round.
That is true, and they're looking for a win here.
Whoa!
They're trying to make sure they get the elimination as well. There's only 11 players remaining. If they get this down, it's just going to be a few more on the board in their way. New Bern is the new kings of the Fortnite coast here in North Carolina as they're eating the pizza up, and, well, they're going to be celebrating a victory soon if they can continue with the domination we've seen from them so far.
Taking some time to heal that one up there as they take out, once again, one of the final members of that Southwest Edgecombe Team C roster. Now, look to source out where the remnants of these other teams are. Remember, they can do the math just as well as we can, and they know for a fact that there probably isn't any full team left standing. Sniper in hand here will take shots potentially from afar as they will look towards their own namesake, New Bern Team B on the low ground. Xavier's got to be careful peeking out like that.
Still alive.
That's true.
Oh, those are all the players that are remaining here, and Peasy the Great is still actually alive from Southwest Edgecombe. Somehow was able to stay in it, but they're looking right next to Divine Gray, who is staying in the zone. They don't want to give away their positioning. They're gonna have to heal up, or they're just AFK. It seemed like they did get away using the rocket ramp. It's a dangerous position for them, but Vicious, they are feeling so much pressure there, and they are gonna get knocked almost.
Inevitably, it is Zach on that low ground taking these counter angles that punishes Vicious for that knock there. Drew, the next to potentially fall, down to just 25 health from Zach, continuing to make this push happen here, and they let it occur. Zach, Monks, the rest of this roster, they don't even move. They let the man carry forward as the scout, as now the storm will force them to keep on moving. Divine Gray is officially spotted out as it is going to be a let leave. Peasy, and then he falls.
2 squads remaining now, it looks like. Drew and JD with the rest of the New Bern High Team A waiting to see what they can do against this 4-on-2 situation between the two New Bern Team A team living up to their namesake. Monk is knocked down, and surely to be eliminated soon, so the odds are being even more so in the favor of New Bern High Team B. They gotta get away from this zone quickly as they are tunneling and they're facing more pressure from the front of them.
Right there on the edge of that storm, you see Zach FN and Alex take this front leeway as now they begin to choke them out. It's from behind, though, that they'll find their victory royale twice in a row here for New Bern Team A.
New Bern squads lasted until the top 5 with Southwest Edcombe, who I think was 3rd, and then it was 4th for the New Bern High Team C with Divine Gray getting eliminated before then. But wow.
Dang.
I mean, that just goes to show how good these New Bern High teams are because of all 3 of them lasted until the top 5. But I gotta give a big shout out to Peasy, somehow escaping the rest of their teammates getting just annihilated and outliving one of the final squads that were still there, getting into the zone, using the rocket ram too. I mean, highlight play for sure. But talking about highlights, New Bern High Team A, they had complete domination over that lobby.
I wish we got to see them in their early game because it wasn't just there in that final moment that they found their victory, completely dominating the rest of those squads. It was also their start where they continued to go from fight to fight, accumulating a massive point lead. I never like to count our chickens before they hatch here, my eggs, I suppose. Chickens can't quite hatch. But New Bern Team High is already looking like a top contender for one of our 4 rosters to move on to our regional finals.
I mean, with the way that all 3 of the New Bern High teams are performing, they could send all 3 of their squads into the state championship, and that would be a monumental achievement for that school. So they're looking to do that, and staying alive the way Divine and Gray was, which I have done so many times in lobbies because I don't know how to build too well, but I know how to stay alive. And really, as long as people don't know you're there, he even stayed in the circle long enough so that people forgot about them and were focused on the other people who were rotating. I mean, 200 IQ played there, but you can only do so much when it's 4 versus 1. But it was also like 2 plus 4 versus 1, so it was kind of a difficult situation towards the end.
Well, the math is difficult, but I'll tell you what, VOD, it is not going to get easier. We're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, we will reintroduce our competitors towards their next step in our qualifiers. Stick around and stay tuned. Welcome back to your VESL Regional Fortnite Qualifiers. Once again, I'm Zephyr, this is Audible, and we have officially gotten the go battle bus revved up and roaring here as we make our way out of our first game. And I'll tell you what, VOD, it has been a a very interesting start, to say the least.
It has been, yeah. We saw 33 eliminations from that New Bern High School Team A, and that is a hot start. They eliminated more than half the lobby. It was 56 players, mind you. So they took out most of them.
That is, I don't know how to describe it. I wouldn't say it's a problem, but it's definitely something that the rest of the lobby has to contest with here in the end.
Especially because each elimination was worth 2 points. So they got 66 points alone off of just the eliminations. Plus, I think it was, 35 points that you get, or 30 points, excuse me, that you get from first place for that victory royale. So heavily cemented themselves in the lead and very likely, I think at this point, pretty almost guaranteed to make it to those state finals.
Well, we'll say for now, obviously there's still a lot of time left on the board for this roster to potentially get eclipsed here. We'll take a look and see how they fare as we make our way into our second of 5.
It's going to be a great performance, to say the least, from the New Bern High School players that we saw. But another team that we mentioned a little bit earlier on that we didn't really give too much accreditation to was Curtic County High, as they also got 14 eliminations themselves and placed 5th. So they're doing pretty good themselves, but they still have to move up the leaderboard a little bit more if they want to make it into that top 4.
Right, and also on top of that, if you weren't watching this last game and it's your first foray into the action, it's not just New Bern High A. From B to C, all all three of these rosters have been on fire, all placing within the top 5 of our game 1.
That they have. Also have to shout out that Southwest Edgecombe High Team C, who placed 3rd,
right,
surviving as long as they could with that final player, eventually able to get them that top 3 placement right over top of that New Bern High Team C with Divine Grade, just getting eliminated right before they fell to their death.
Now, I will say we've got a little bit of a start here from Tarboro High Team B, just on the outskirts of our ruins and not quite set up for a fight just yet. May find themselves the next action of West Craven High Team A here on the opposite end as slowly, I mean that flag, that's going to be seen. The one, everyone, they're starting to make their way over and across, and you've got no kind of defense set up here.
It makes so much noise and alerts people whenever it is captured, and as you can see it go out there, you get some good items, but you also probably don't have many builds available here. And that one Devon looking to be eliminated pretty soon if Versailles can go and get that knock completed, but they're still managing to stay alive for the most part and get some more information on the other team exactly where they are, but eventually they're going to get knocked down.
Coming through there. The one kind of checking that one out, maybe a little bit too egregiously here for West Craven High. Instead, it is going to now be that major advantage for Tarboro in a 3v4. And remember, on top of that, having that additional loot from that early capture will take advantage of that, even if the builds may be leaving more than enough to ask for.
Ooh, infrared scope and looking to see if they can get the knock here and the elimination. There's a good knock, but still with players remaining, it's not going to be an instant elimination there. So still putting some good shots on as best as they can, but not really enough. As you can see, 2 of their players are knocked down on their squad and needing some sort of help up. Otherwise, they're going to have to get a revive or just completely disengage might be the best option. They can get at least one of their teammates up, and that seems to be the option they're going for.
Gonna take the time here to get. Oh no!
Wrong.
Not
button.
quite successful.
Not enough time, and unfortunately, I think they pressed the wrong button too. They brought out the builds and didn't exactly go for the heals. So they're trying to see what the best option is here, and I think the best option, honestly, is to disengage. You're the only one remaining on your team. You need to get out of the area. You have something you can use to escape and burst through those builds, but you're getting shot at, having to use the rest of it. And there we go. The elimination comes out, and not going to be too much working out there.
No, not quite at this moment. And You can see, even with a member down, it was going to be the rest there of our friends from West Craven High who bided their time, waited this one out, and slowly put a chokehold here on Tarboro High Team B, even if they were not at that initial engagement.
Father-voiced Anthony and Ed spread out and seeing exactly what they can do here to get all the mats necessary, get all the loot that remains here. And 47 players already remaining on this one at Rumble Ruins. And Rumble Ruins more towards Shattered Slabs is where we saw the end of the storm last go around. So now we're going over to Peasy and the crew yet again on Southwest Edgecombe, placed third. Mind you, with Peasy surviving as long as they could before, trying to get up into the action as well. Doing all that they can, but no, they're going to fall and get knocked. And they got baited, it felt like, on that one.
And it's no real better for anyone else there in terms of their own success. Meanwhile, we tune in over to Not Lectin crew and struggling in their own way down a member much the same. We're going to pop back on over to at least West Craven, who are going to be able to successfully get this reboot off after the entire fight that took place there early in the ruins.
Yeah, not too much to worry about when you only have one player that got eliminated. You were able to bring them back because you won the ruins for yourself, and now all the loot is for your taking. That's what's nice about landing at one of the more prominent points of interest throughout the island itself. Is there's plenty of different options. Even if another team lands there, you're confident you can get the eliminations there. Well, then you're just going to have everything available to you from that POI and go on from there. And well, now it looks like one of the players on this squad with Crazier Dandy now trying to see what they can do to get back to their teammates and get revived and brought back up and into the fight.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame here in the end. It has not been the strongest of starts for Not Lect. This is a roster that has quite literally fallen every single early game here, and we'll make that another drop on Lect as well, as now it is just Froyon to be the last remaining member to come through. It's none other than Southwest Edgecombe, the roster we saw stick it out for a long time at the hands of Peasy here as that solo member in our last game.
They did pretty well for themselves, but they need a bit more elimination points, I feel like. They got some decent placements, but they weren't really able to do too much when it came to the individual, or not really individual, but the team fights against the other contestants that are out there trying to book their tickets into those state finals. You can see Alex, we saw before, doing pretty good on the feed last two games, even with the warm-up one that didn't count. Well, now they're doing pretty good for themselves here too, already getting some knocks.
Yeah, New Bern High consistently the top, and let me be specific, New Bern High Team A consistently being the dominant factor within this lobby, and you can see them taking advantage of, most notably, none other than New Bern High C.
Unfortunate to say the least there, because New Bern High Team C was able to last until the top four at the end with Divine Gray, but speaking of Divine Gray, they got taken out really quickly, so we'll maybe see some remnants of that squad if any of them escape, but you could see that NUB, Utopia, and Divine Gray were taken out, and I think the majority of that squad was pretty much done for.
As we get back into our free cam here, we get the opportunity to see a little bit of that Southwest Edgecombe rotation, but reminder, nothing truly has started for any one of these rosters. We're talking about the early skirmishes of your point of interest, where you find your drop. When it comes down to the Storm, we go into a bit more of a lull period now for most of these teams to take a step back, realize that they have accumulated the eliminations that they do have, and hopefully now some nicer loot that they can rest on their laurels, but gotta get themselves set up, acquainted, the build's in a good place to get, well, in a better spot for that end game.
ECD Dark, easy forward on the rotation. They seem to be the more confident players on this squad, and Wesley and Sir Get Down just trailing a little bit behind them. Also interesting too, because if the first two players do get engaged from a squad, well, the other two can maybe get a better angle and rotate around so that they can kind of split up where the firing lines are going to come from instead of all of them getting taken down at once, as we've seen different squads have that happen to them in that last lobby. But still trying to see exactly where they want to rotate around. We saw Relentless retreat, I think, a little bit in the background. You can see towards the water, so they're going towards Frenzy Fields a little bit, right past Rumble Ruins, in towards Shattered Slabs here as well. So a couple of different options for them as far as loot goes, depending on what exactly they want to go for. And it doesn't seem like anyone else is in Shattered Slabs, but they don't seem to want to commit there just yet, and that might be based on where the circle is. So if we could get a look at the map too, see exactly where the storm is forming so far. I know it's a bit early on into this one as well, but this team seems to be pretty alone for the most part, and well, that's kind of why, because Shattered Slabs, nothing there, and it's on the outskirts of that storm, so really they got to get closer towards the center. And we saw a lot of teams that were at Rumble Ruins before, but I think they've already rotated closer to Slappy Shores, which seems to be more on the edge of that zone.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of our no-name finish here, kind of out towards the edge of our swamps, and a little bit of the remnants of the edges of Rumble there. And as a result, it can be a little bit difficult to get yourself acquainted and set up. There is no direct building to play off of or point of interest to work with. Meanwhile, it is going to be JP Knapp, ECH Team A on their own edge here. A bit of a sneaky play from Tanner, getting some shots out the far, but not quite the finish.
Now we do see a team fight between Southwest Edgeville, Team C, and one of the other squads that are out there as well, trying to do what they can to just get the roof up underneath all the builds, and hopefully they can make sure that they can support each other when the shots are coming through, but they aren't feeling as confident as you would typically see them.
I believe this is West Craven coming off of their success on the ruins there. It is going to be the full push as ECD Dark is split across Anthony as well. Now for Circuit down to Wesley in a 2v4 situation, trying to piece their way out of this one. Will have to take some time, claim their boxes, as Father Voiced is at least pushed back in their own right. This is going to give some time potentially for some revives. Wesley taking advantage all the same here to get EC Dark back into it.
Ooh, Anthony taking their time too, trying to make sure that they can heal up as best as possible. Father Voice really doesn't have too much left alone themselves, but you did see some sort of pulse grenade go off just to send everyone away and do some shield damage to those players. Peasy looking for something here. Anthony and ECD Dark might be facing off against each other instead, and Peasy able to escape a little bit. Father Voice knocked down, so they can get the completion on that elimination. Be huge. Anthony also knocked down too, so the squad for West Craven not doing too good.
Finally completely eliminated here as Southwest are officially able to get them completely down and out there, taking advantage of that minor exchange, a little bit of the mess up there, kind of having that height available for North Craven and then dropping down and finding themselves down 2 members. And even though they did get the official revives off, it was far too little too late as those nades came out and completely disrupted their positioning.
West Craven placed in 7th out of the 15 teams that competed in that first round and didn't really get any eliminations from what we saw. We'll get some more updates on that scoreboard as things get put in, but not really the greatest spot they want to go out here because they went out pretty early last time, or more middle of the pack, but earlier this time comparatively. So this team that we saw make it into the top 4 last go around, the Southwest Edgecombe High Team C, looking pretty good for themselves.
We'll see how they get themselves set up now, officially down to the final 23 players remaining within our lobby, well and below the halfway point here. And remember, last time around, we were starting to tick up numbers like these. A team by the name of New Bern High A was already, I believe, 2/3 of their way chewing through the lobby.
Not too much to worry about here for the team who did come out on top in that matchup between those 2 squads, West Craven High and Southwest Edgecombe High, Team C. As that seems to be the main team we've been seeing doing very well for Southwest Edgecombe for the most part, but now changing a bit of perspectives, going into the team who came out on top last go around, Zach, Monk, Xavier, and Alex. Looking to see how many eliminations they'll get this go around. You can see some shots coming out. Monk getting Titanium Bear taken out, with Zach getting the finish on the elimination that time. And, well, they're just trying to capture a zone as best they can and maybe get some extra loot out of it.
already right off the bat here, we can see the 10 eliminations in hand there over towards the edge. Going to take advantage of our high ground solo island loot pillar here to get that legendary Live AR in the hands of one here. And they'll take their time, cover some of these angles. They're not just going to quite take it without making sure they're all clear there. Bit of a separation. I believe Xavier is the one who sniffs this out. Gloop Glop, an overrated bot, just potentially below them. They haven't quite found their exact positioning, but final remnants are only feet away.
Oh, and they are running away from them too. They don't have any clue that they're there. So Gloop Glop, an overrated bot from Southwest Edgecombe, High Team A. We talked about not really seeing the other Southwest Edgecombe squads in a while. Well, we finally got to see them kind of go the distance, and now there's some shots coming out, and they're trying to chase down this one player who's basically sacrificing themselves.
Oh, Quippers on the other side is spotted by Xavier and Zach FN here, and we know how quick they can come through. You can see that rocket ram just landing from Zach FN as they are relentless when they lock their teeth on their prey. They do not let go here, even though I think this time around, it is going to get the best of them. It is not the most clear of areas. A lot of those trees, the swampland, the marsh ahead is a bit difficult to see through.
I also like how this team, they're so confident that, you know, they have all the points necessary pretty much to make it into the top 4 unless some crazy games come out from the rest of the competition, that they're just going forward and see if they can get eliminations and splitting things up like they're pub stopping in just a public lobby. Ooh, Zach, maybe you noticed someone? No. Overrated bot's been chilling.
He's literally in the car.
Oh,
I was about to say,
gone.
if you do not see that, that is a difficulty. He'll take you out and he'll take your whip as well. I thought for a second we would see some damage, but it isn't the case.
There goes Gloop Glop too.
Oh, not even the shot. It is literally just fall damage.
They do get the elimination because it was just a knock. So that means the rest of that squad is somewhere else, not even in this area, split up so that maybe they can have a better chance at surviving. They weren't really focusing on getting elimination. It's just funny that they were sitting in that truck for such a long time, and finally, as they got out of the truck, they were spotted.
I was about to say, at that point, you clearly knew the jig was up there. Monk and Alex and them had already been set up well within this building for such a long time. It just took them it just took a little bit of time for the smell of you to waft over and for them to lock eyes.
This floating island looks like there might be a chance for someone just to get up there and have high ground if they can hold on to it, but it's not really the best angle to see what else is around the area. And Zach, Monk, Alex, and Xavier really are just feeling good about this position that they have currently, waiting to see if anyone is rotating in from the storm or anything else. But we do see at least a player remaining here. Peace rebooted, so that does mean we did see one of the players from the squad of Kurtuk come back into the fray, because that team placed top 5, remind you, and 14 eliminations, so they're definitely a team to look out for. So if Peace was rebooted, that definitely means, or likely means, the rest of the squad's doing pretty good.
I was about to say, it's not just them. We got to see Not Big Red as well rebooted here in that moment. Now, though, we will tune right back into the island here, where it feels like a tale as old as time. Southwest Edgecombe getting into the action, and no less than New Bern Team A just across from them there. They do take this island, and they're going to be able to play off of a lot of this great height that you were talking about, Vaudable, but not quite any eliminations just yet. I think teams are also just as respectful of positions like this.
Wesley took a little bit of a tumble and some damage there. I was worried about the ticket tumble off the whole thing, but they are fine from it. You can see at the bottom a little bit of an indicator that there's a team all the way across the way as you were talking about, but really too far to fire out. You don't want to waste all your ammo, especially with so much time remaining. And we can get a little bit of an update on how many players remain too, because there's still so much of the storm and so much of the circle here. 22 currently, so plenty of teams trying to outlast how quickly that last lobby went, and it makes sense with the placements being so crucial. As you can see, it's still so spread out between these different squads.
Ooh! Apparently not spread out enough. the long shot there. It will not be able in terms of a full elimination. The shots are coming through ASAP, and this is going to force a bit of those mats from the hands here of New Bern High Team A. But with that legendary slurp juice in hand, it is going to be a full reset for Zach FN.
That it will. Not too much to worry about there, and getting some of the pizza to shore up the rest of their HP. A little bit dangerous when you're using that zip line as well, because it can mess you up if you aren't really able to get in a good position from it. But you see some more knocks coming out. Not Big Red. Knocked out by the Storm. No, more Storm knocked out. It feels like Kurtuk was in the Storm too much, getting knocked out from it. And I don't think any of them are going to be surviving from that, as you see the rest of those players get taken out. Not Big Red, as you can see right there. And all of those players from Kurtuk are taken out
so quickly at the hands here of Not Burn, or my apologies, New Bern High Team A, as they will literally just drop the one member to make this one happen. But I'll tell you what, VOD, even if you missed it, this is a bit of a deja vu situation for so many of our rosters here, getting the opportunity to once again introduce the Mega City and play around it.
I love the little like thing on the top of it too. It's just such like a nice eye-opening feature for it. But you can see three different strategies. One team that's just in the Mega City trying to see if they can hold on to the control of it. The other teams doing what they can as well afterwards, just to rotate into it. But it's going to come down to where the Storm is going to move as well. And it's moving away from the Mega City from what it looks like too. So that's going to be a difficult spot for those teams who are in the Mega City. And we saw this happen, as you talked about deja vu, in that first lobby that unfortunately again didn't count for the point totals. But you can tell the team who came out on top last time, well, they're just looking to do what they can to take on the team that is on top of the world, on top of the Mega City, because they have all the confidence and all the skill from what we've seen before.
Now, I will say I love this. New Bern is just walking right by Peasy on the low ground. This is literally what we saw from Southwest Edgecombe in the first scored game of the day. They're surviving against the other New Bern rosters as a single member, one box to their name. And I will tell you what, usually in solos, this is something that gets spotted out, but I'll tell you what gets spotted more than that. A car, a bit of the multi-track drifteroo straight into the heart of Monks there for another, and I will say this, easy Elin.
0-2 for vehicles, it seems like right now. Not really the greatest strategy here for these players, but you can see that these teams are spreading out as best they can. Unknown Kylek is going to be shot from the air. The rocket ram is going to be blown up mid-flight from the anti-air rifle shots that were coming out from this team.
I was about to say, that'll be it for Washington High. I will say they had a remarkable performance. Yeah, playing on the high ground last time around. Didn't quite last as long. This is an improvement. Now, though, we come down to the heyday. The crew of both our first and third place team. A straight 4v4 between New Bern High Team A and Team B.
Washington came in 6th place last go around, so not really too much that they were able to do at that time, unfortunately. But looking to see how far the rest of these teams can push themselves. JD on Zaza trying to get away and maybe get a lower angle onto Alex. And I liked the play, but didn't really have enough room to work with on that one.
Oh, JD sneaking up from behind. I believe Zach does spot this one out. It's a play he's liked to play through before, and now the rest of the team trying to make their moves up to secure and defend this one out. With the Storm coming in its clutches on the very back end of this space, it may be time for New Bern Team High A to make their moves just before we begin to see this one rotate. Still, though, does not solve the problem that they are the ones that do hold the high ground. I do question, though, in terms of the mat utilization, New Bern Team High A is technically the ones who are on the back foot in those resources, now forced to group together to stay alive.
Ooh, they got to be careful here. Someone just got launched off the map there for a second. Alex, Zach, Monks, they're using their rocket rams to get away and have the control of the zone as it is moving so that they can maybe get some eliminations here. Vicious knocked through Knocked, and this might be it for the B team. Newburn high as the A team again moving. They are the stronger. Xavier's down though. JD on Zaza does get the elimination, trying to see what they can do from here. But there is the final KO. There goes the elimination, and Newburn. 2 back-to-back victory royales here, Zephyr. And I had like a pathetic thing that came to me here before we even started today, Zephyr. I'm like, one team is going to win it all every single time, and so far it's happened.
So far, I was going to say, between the practice round and the first 2 matches here, it is once again Newburn High, Team A, to come out on top. Team B, we're close. I like some of the strategies. True. JD does try to play out a little bit of that solo scout game to get some off angles there, but the best part about this is we get to see some off angles in the end that secure that fight. Xavier using the grenade to get the reposition on the opposite side of zone for the instantaneous knock against Team B. That immediately sets this up to be a 3v4 situation. And while yes, we did see some knocks in return, that was the major domino before the end.
That it was. Well, we're going to have to end our time here for at least this round. We'll be back after a quick break with a couple more rounds to go. 2 down, 3 more to go as we see who's going to be the top 4 teams to make it into the state championships.
Welcome back to our VESL Regional Fortnite Qualifiers. Once again, bringing you our Coastal Clash. We've gone through 2 incredible matches, and most of our scoreline is updated here. There is a kingdom, and it has come for New Bern High. Not just their Team A, but their Team B as well. I will say, Team A taking the cake currently at 172 points, with B in second, a whole, let's say, my gosh, 90 points behind at 82.
Yeah, so New Bern High Team A basically securing for the
Congrats,
most part
guys.
like top 4. I don't think it's possible for them not to get top 4, even if they just didn't connect to the next 3 lobbies. I think they would still be guaranteed in at this point, but it depends on how many eliminations these teams get, and that's why it's nice to see that eliminations are favored heavily in this point total format. 2 points for each eliminations, 30 total for victory royales, and going down from there. So the more eliminations you get, the better you're going to be doing, because looking at the 3rd place team too, we were talking about, it's not just all New Bern High City. Southwich Edgecombe High Team C, with 10 eliminations that time, placed 4th instead of 3rd. Still doing pretty good for themselves. They're currently in 3rd. And then also the team right below them, we talked about before, Currituck County High, only got 2 eliminations this time, but a 6th place finish, still pretty good. They're in the top 4 as well.
Yeah, definitely a strong start for at least 4 of these rosters. I have a heavy hand towards New Bern A and B, and of course Southwest Edgecombe, but the competition, at least for 2nd through 4th, is still incredibly close. There is that slight gap between JPK and Currituck in that 4th and 5th. I believe that a difference of 28 points, but hey, 28 points is one great win with enough eliminations to set yourself up to be within that qualifying spot. So definitely not far away or unreasonable.
Yeah, the difference between 3rd and 4th, 2 points right now. A single elimination is all it takes for you to be in that top 4, or more heavily favored as well for that top 4. So that's going to be a big thing to see what the rest of the pack can do to get some eliminations, and maybe finding different drop spots would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Certain teams just like a certain drop, and that's what they're going to go for every single time. And that's the loot that they're familiar with. Maybe if you change things up and go to a different POI, and then you can find a team that isn't as confident, take them out, get those eliminations early on, get their loot, and then go from there.
I mean, I think you bring up a great point. It's something we were discussing before we got into the game, or we were getting into our game 3 here. As we get this lobby situated, eliminations hold a very, very heavy hand right now. The single point eliminations that teams may be potentially used to in Fortnite, especially teams that are a little bit more macro oriented, it's not as forgiving, right? I mean, when you are counting double per elim, that is something that heavily eclipses most, if not all, of the placement that you as a team can accumulate. So for some of our teams that are more used to fighting, who are able to take some of those early fights like you are recommending, they are definitely taking a heavy hand towards our lead currently, because we do see a difference when we start to look at teams like Washington, like New Bern B, like JPA, right? These are teams that maybe have consistently placed within our top 6, but aren't quite representing in the elims like they need to.
And that's what we saw, like you were talking about Washington. They haven't gotten a single elimination, but they got 3rd place in placement. So, I mean, they're in the top 6 with that. They've gotten 43 points off of that. So if they just got a couple eliminations, they could have been in 5th at least, gunning for 4th potentially. So we're just waiting for these players to get into the lobby, just waiting for one more team so that we can get back on the battle bus and launched into the air yet again with our gliders and see how far these teams can go. But one thing to note, New Bern High A in total with eliminations, 56. They have eliminated an entire lobby by themselves in 2 rounds.
An entire lobby within 2 rounds here. We do see a slight decline. They go from 33 elims in their first game, a whopping half total, to, you know, a casual 23 in their second. And it is only eclipsed by the fact that we see Southwest Edgecombe and New Bern B pick up a handful of extra kills themselves, I believe, upping their own totals +9 across their elims on the board there. So I mean, you've got to share at some point here.
Yeah.
One thing that I like to point out is it's a little bit sad. We were kind of hoping for that New Bern A through C run through, and funny enough, it was New Bern A that actually eliminates New Bern B early in the game, so they don't even get the opportunity to reposition or potentially compete there. And that's the funny thing. These teams technically don't know who each
they're
other
facing off
are,
against, yeah.
right?
Unless they see them like once they're finally fighting, but like in this, we can tell now that New Bern is going for whoever is out there. They want the eliminations. They're hungry for those points, even if it's the C team who plays pretty well in that first one, top 4 as we saw as well, and then 3 eliminations. 13th is how they went down that go around. So unfortunate to say the least, but now you can see everyone getting launched out of the battle bus. They better thank the bus driver, and make sure you do in chat as well, and also thank VESL for putting this all together. It's been a great time so far in these first 2 lobbies. Now we're getting down to the wire. 3 lobbies remain to try and qualify for those state finals that'll be happening at the beginning of the next year. As you can see, a beautiful view of the entire map. We've had 2 finishes technically at that mega city, so I'm wanting something different, maybe towards Brutal Bastion or something. Some different change in visuals here for us towards the end of this next round.
Now, it was early off in our last game that the Ruins became a hot topic here, especially when we were looking towards teams like, I believe, my apologies, Tarboro here and West Craven High. And inevitably, it was West Craven High that were able to work their way back into it, even though they face some early knocks here. And that's why I'm interesting, because we talk about the early game, we talk about getting that aggression going as soon as possible. It's one of those teams that are doing as so.
Well, now we have to see exactly when everyone lands, exactly who we are going to be following along with. You can see one player still gliding as long as it takes for them to find a good drop spot. They don't want to go anywhere near some of the heavy hitters. They just want to go as far as they can away from the competition, into the outskirts, the mega city, maybe not even the outskirts, so that they can get things going from there. It looks like the bus was kind of far away from that area, so they had to glide quite a distance to get into that main POI that they were looking for.
And that's a big question that you always have to consider when we start to discuss your drops as a player, right? I mean, the time from the path alongside things, additionally, just given the fact that you might be delaying your drop, we're talking an extra 30, 40 seconds, and that is not a little amount of time, especially in your early game. We're talking about putting yourself on the best foot forward, because you never know who is quite around that next corner looking for a fight here.
Very true. As you can see, some of the different areas that teams can potentially loot across the area. See Lek, as we've seen before, trying to see what they can do. Father Voiced already getting some eliminations here and there. We saw that player trying to pop off before. Not Big Red. We saw that from the team of Kurtuk County High looking pretty good. You already see, I think that was either an NPC or an AFK player that was taken out there.
Whatever it may be, it is another drop in the bucket, whether it be resources or points here. And for this roster, they will take their time, finish up that full elim, and we'll now begin getting the full charge on our flag here.
Yeah, want to get everything notified here. I think it also notifies them of where all of the crates are so that they can go for those, get some loot, and make sure that they have this area covered. But it also does notify anyone who is in the area of this area being taken. So you see Crazier Dandy taken out by Father Voice, and Father Voice is doing pretty well so early on into this.
West Craven High, once again, one of those teams that have started incredibly early, and once again, it does look like we continue to see some action there as more teams are beginning to find their early wins, as that loot does find its way.
I gotta say, Titanium, I feel so sorry for you. You've been knocked out so many times from the Southwest Edgecombe High Team A early on in these rounds. Wherever they are dropping, they need to change that for the next few, because it has not been working out so far.
And at the end of the day, I mean, you've got to figure out whether it be a different drop spot or a different strategy. There's not a lot of time left on the board if you want to eclipse that top 4. And it is not a small number to eclipse. We're not talking about the New Bern A's 172, but at least hitting that 73+ point mark is definitely where you need to be.
That's going to be so important for these teams that are looking to push into that top 4. Thankfully for them, it is top 4, not just top 3. Otherwise, we already have our top 3. I'm fairly confident in saying they're going to continue with the journey that we've seen from them unless they face off against each other early enough in these rounds. And luckily enough, they seem to drop far enough away from each other that that doesn't quite happen too soon into this one. So not too much to really worry about for this team who's got this Slappy Shores locked down and nobody else really near them.
Yeah, and they'll take advantage of this, especially with the fact that when we do tune into that circle here in the moment, I believe you're going to see the fact that Slappy Shores is handedly well within place, right? They don't actually have to make any moves very far to find themselves in a secured position in zone. So, craft up, grab as much as you can when it comes down to the loot path right now. Break as many builds, get the 150 tier name in preparation for that late game, and then especially when this storm, or at least the first one, closes in, then we can look towards our rotations.
Looking at this Tarboro High Team B, I mean, they've got this area locked down. They don't really have too much to worry about. They're just getting all the loot possible. Hopefully they get some resources, but you do see another squad coming in towards this area from the north, from Brutal Bastion towards Slappy Shores. Hookah Please and their other teammate Straw Ice looking to see what they can do. Actually, no, they're just getting shot at and taken down here, knocked, and Straw Ice trying to see what they can do here as well.
This is one of those JP Nap rosters here who have had some major struggles just getting rolling here. Hookah already dropped, and Straw Ice likely to be that next one forward. Purcell is just going to throw the car right on into him, slam him from downtown on the hood. There is Adion on the backside, pumps it in, and it's not the full one. Tanner and the rest of this roster is still technically alive, but losing too early is never a place you want to be.
Tanner was just hiding down the river too, did not want to commit, noticed that they were knocked and maybe just trying to survive as best they can. Scared of the situation that they had found themselves in. They were just looking for somewhere else to loot, and well, now instead of the car being 0-2, it is 1-2 when it comes to eliminations. There you see Tanner.
Yeah, still in it, not quite hiding in terms of
He's
a
in
box,
the car too.
but the car, I mean, it is a very minor source of cover, but it is enough of a distraction. One that is just shy of an apparent flag here for the rest. Tanner will survive. Tanner will live for now. I'm saying right now, Hadion. I was saying Hadion is definitely sniffing this one out, maybe just a little bit. They know for a fact that they didn't quite pick up the full team, but they don't have time to waste. Storm is moving in.
Storm is moving in. Tanner's got to move at some point in time. We'll check back in with them in a moment, but you do see this team moving on forward to see how far they can go to get some more eliminations. They've already got 2, so that's 4 points total for them, which is going to be huge moving forward. And now just need to see if there's any other squads waiting them in this Brutal Bastion. I talked about it. Finally, we're getting some teams exploring this area a little bit. I really like this POI just because there's so many different options and areas that you can loot here, but it's really easy to see other players based on what skin they're using too.
Yeah. And they will source this one out here. The Brutal Bastion, though, a great source of cover, especially on the outskirts of our snowy tundra here. The rest of it, maybe not quite such to say the same, even though the verticality does play quite an influential piece. This building, though, alone can house at least 2, 3, 4 squads here. But we were discussing this, Vaughn, before we really got into this lobby. We were discussing some of these teams being a lot more aggressive than what we're used to when it comes to Fortnite. I know maybe for some, they're looking for even more action. But when you get into that high caliber level of Fortnite, whether it be collegiate or potentially those in the FNCS, you know, teams tend to hunker down. They tend to really choke this one out from as far as they can for as long as they can, especially as we get to that late game.
That late game is going to be so important for these teams, depending on how well they were able to manage their resources, get all the mats necessary. We talked about exactly what they need for that point in time, and some of these players seem to be better at builds, but builds really hasn't been the decider, I feel like, when it comes to a lot of these fights. For the most part, it's just been positioning and knowing when to engage and disengage, and the team that's been doing the best for that has been that New Bern High Team A that's been doing pretty well for themselves. We do see some shots being fired here and there.
New Burn B on the other end here. You gotta be a bit careful. Drew is being shot from the back. They were able to draw some attention on a single vehicle. Love this AR from afar. Going to be at least the starting end of a fight. Meanwhile, it is FTL Orange on the opposite side who had made this chase, who does deliver on at least the first knock.
Yeah, Vicious and FTL Orange looking for something here. See how far they can go to maybe get an elimination of their own. Drew and Zaza are really in a bad spot too. Feeling some pressure, the shield's almost down, and they're not in the greatest position. FTL Orange shield completely gone and drained. Will Drew back into a good spot, but Lek looking pretty solid for themselves too.
Probably the most aggressive that I have seen this team thus far. Even though they do lose out on one, they do put in some good damage from behind to not let just New Burn B walk into that one with a clear conscience. Still though, gonna have to find their way back to a reboot bus somewhere and get their teammate in, as New Burn B will continue on their way forward.
And that's a wise decision for New Burn B. Again, they know they're not as secured as New Burn A is in their placement if they get eliminated this early, especially with, I think it's like about 40 players remaining at this point. That is not going to be the best spot for them, so they got to be careful on that one. When you see Gloop Glop is looking at them from across the way, and I think that's one of the Washington players, if I'm not mistaken, with the way that we saw them perform last time. They were just trying to stay alive as long as possible, and it didn't quite work out.
Southwest Edgecombe there is a bit of the ratting
A,
squad.
that's right.
Right, we saw them last time around, kind of hunkered down, very similarly to the start we saw from one of our other friends earlier in this game, JP Knapp. And even right there in that moment, Blue Glop completely separated. We did peak overrated on the completely opposite side, roughly 300, 400 feet away in the Ice Valley. So for some reason, this team taking the option to solo rat individually to piece that one together.
Interesting. Very interesting. And talking about that team too, I mentioned Titanium, who was struggling a little bit, and that was the player who was on Southwest Edgecombe High Team A that got eliminated really early on in this round too. So Luke Lott probably just trying to see if they can survive and go away, but it looks like there's going to be 3 squads converging here. 2 of the top squads too. New Bern High B and Southwest Edgecombe Team C, who are trying to get away from this storm. And Gloop Glop you can see there as well.
Oh.
So a couple of the Southwest Edgecombe High teams as well. It's really going to come down to who's going to engage and who that questionable team in the distance is as well.
Yeah, I believe that was the remnants, or I believe actually the full roster of, my apologies, West Craven High there. Right, coming off of the end of the ruins this time around, not quite held back by some of their early exchanges, actually delivering quite quickly in getting this rotation. You can see them already set up on that hillside, looking to potentially cater to the height where they might be able to hold out the remnants of the site between New Bern B and Southwest Edgecombe.
So we have Southwest Edgecombe A and C and New Bern B and West Craven all just jumbled up in this one area. Nobody exactly taking any eliminations just yet. We see a 4th team, I mean a 5th team getting in on the action too. We haven't seen this squad in quite some time with Sleep, who's on North Edgecombe High teammate. We haven't even talked about North Edgecombe High because they've been eliminated just off the screen a couple of times. So nice to see them get involved here too.
Mind you, this is the Team A, so it is a shock that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about what should be the best roster from North Edgecombe High. But like you said, just quite wiped out, maybe a little bit too early in so many scenarios here. I will say
13th and 15th the last 2 times. Yeah, makes sense.
Jamal going to be dropping right down into Southwest Edgecombe on the opposite side. ECD Dark actually not quite landing anything as Jamal is able to get a bit away. Going to take some time with the minis there, or at least some extra shielding to get healed up, but is immediately spotted out from behind. New Bern B from the opposite angle, and this might be the catalyst to all these teams starting their action. FTL Orange caught out. It might be the remnants here. On the other side, Anthony chasing that one down.
Oh, these players need to disengage as quickly as they can. They know they're in a bad spot, and there's so many players. FTL Orange has 1 HP, somehow still alive on the outskirts of things. things, but we still have to keep an eye on JD, on Zaza, and Vicious, who are just trying to get away using these rocket ramps. So that's not where you want to go, because it's right towards another team. For JD on Zaza, luckily for them, they're not getting pressured as much as they would hope, but they need to escape from that area. They're healing up, but it's a dangerous spot to be in, to say the least.
FDL Orange may be looking to regroup with the rest of New Bern B. Gets a little bit of that med mist as Southwest Edgecombe, they don't have the sight lines to capitalize in this situation. Meanwhile, it is going to be West Craven High, our early rotators from height, who take advantage of all of this. Finally, with that storm closing in, they're able to lay down the pressure. You can see the sticky grades come now. And for Southwest Edgecombe, this is a struggle. This will be an incredibly early fall if they go down here.
That will be not the greatest spot they want to start off in this round 3 as things go down to the wire, but that's just how things go. And I don't know how, I talked about it before, but it managed to be Brutal Bastion is where all the action is happening in the snowy lands here up north on the island. But Wesley, JD, Peasy the Great doing what they can to try and survive and fight off against each other. Peasy from Southwest Edgecombe High, Team C, looking for something to try and take down JD. Father Voice getting knocked there as well. That one Divine trying to see how far that they can get away from this action too. And things have slowed down as the zone has just closed in on itself, but not going to move anytime soon, which gives them a little bit more room to breathe. JD is facing so much pressure that the rest of his teammates now need to back him up.
Immediately, Southwest Edgecombe looking for their own successes. We do see some of those sticky grenades come through. Vicious is splitting. You see Dark and Wesley will take advantage. A 1v1 situation as Drew is wiped out. Peasy taking 2. And for our friends on New Bern B, they are said and done early. Once again, they fell in 13th last game. This time around, no further for them south. And for Southwest Edgecombe, Storm's not really that punishing right now. They have all the time in the world to walk forward at their successful wipe.
So it actually wasn't New Bern B that fell early last time. It was New Bern C who fell early last time. New Bern B actually was the one who was in second currently. So now this is the earliest we have seen them go down, and which is a bad spot for them. You might even see that Edgecombe team go down pretty quickly too if they can't escape the zone here, as there's already teams that have just gotten and battened down the hatches in Brutal Bastion, facing off against each other. And this is going to be a completely different end game, but one thing we haven't seen at all so far that we probably will see here is New Bern High Team A, who has been the top dog so far. And we'll see how they get involved in the action soon.
Well, it may be sometime towards our end game. Right now, though, we tune in towards JP Knapp Team B. They themselves contesting, at least here in the Brutal Bastion, and it's going to be a full wipe on West Craven's X-Ed there. Might have the time to get the revive off as they are currently grouped up. It is going to be a difficult one at that. Father Voice, Anthony, the one got to find themselves. They're setting up as the height has been taken away by Vercel, Lek, and Hadion Cadio.
Wesley doesn't really have too much HP, so just trying to see if they can rotate around and get to a different area with the rest of Southwest Edgecombe High Team C. You can see so many players are down here too, trying to see what they could do to just stay alive long enough for them to get revived, but not really going to work out too well for them, as the one Devin or Divine getting an elimination on that one, going to get their one teammate up and see what they can do from here as we get an inside view to the action in Brutal Bastion.
I will say it looks like West Craven High is the most successful team. Even with the split that we just saw, they are the roster that is most successful wiping, and it is the one who finds a 2v1 successful situation. On the edge there, we do get to see the remnants of Southwest Edgecombe, who did make it in through the storm here. And now, like you said, West Craven High, the rest of these rosters all forced to leave the Brutal Bastion. It's going to be the jump pad utilized at least by them, as well as that hammer to get in. Nobody quite stumped just yet. And as I say that, the one faces a little bit of fall damage.
The Storm has eliminated so many different players this go around with the way that it has positioned itself so far from where the majority of the POIs have been, as it's moving so quickly away from the players who were left in the remnants of Brutal Bastion, and now going towards the coast at this point in time to see who's going to stay alive. And speaking of staying alive, we finally saw our first glimpse of some of the teams we've seen before with Currituck County High, with most of them being down currently, except for Peace, who's in the storm. So they might not be up for too long as Push Scroll is going to stay alive and get it around to a different area. Xavier launched from AKA Lek. Instead, you do see the #1 team here getting involved in the action. Finally, New Bern High Team A, who have just been focusing on placement this time instead of eliminations, it feels like.
Setting themselves up early in that zone does come at its price. Looking a little bit weaker, they will lose out on Zach very early. Xavier, though, is able to successfully get a box out here on his fellow teammate and stick, hopefully, the revive. Damage on, and it's going to be focused on Anthony instead. Southwest Edgecombe finding that one there will get the full wipe as Zach is pulled back into it. Still, though, this is the low ground, and Xavier will be taken out. ECD Dark with the flex, and you got to wonder, Alex, Monk, the support for the teammates, not there, completely separated right now.
A difficult spot to be in there for those two players, but if any two players are going to be able to survive and drag out, I mean, those are the two that you can expect to see be able to pull it off from what we've witnessed thus far. These are the greats just taking their time and not really too focused on how things are going with that other team, as they've kind of gotten a bit of a regroup themselves. So you do see Alex, Monk, and Zach there. Big Red and Peace seem to be back into things, as they did get knocked earlier, but somehow are able to get brought back up in time. But again, zone closing in on this team out of Currituck County High, who have been doing pretty good for themselves as far as placement goes. 5th and then 6th, 14 eliminations in game 1 or round 1, and then 2 in the second one. So maybe if they can get some more eliminations, a little bit better of a placement, they will secure a top 4 at least in these first 3 rounds. And they just need to continue with that performance so far.
Now this time around, I will admit it is a 3v3v3 here, at least for our friends across these rosters you see directly in front of you. All of them losing out on at least one on each of their rotations there. I do think for New Bern A, it wasn't quite necessary to get that full drop on Xavier on their spread, but at the end of it, hindsight is 2020.
Some good damage on the Push Scroll, who's now knocked, and that's going to be a tough spot for them to get revived from, especially with the storm going to be closing in pretty soon. You do see Peace going after not Big Red and the rest of that team from the side of Currituck County High, and maybe not exactly where you want to see, or no, Peace is on that team, excuse me, with the other team, Peasy, trying to go after them from just getting the high ground and make sure that they don't have all the pressure that we've been witnessing from them so far.
Peasy, though, on the outside does lay this one in, but gives himself away here. Monk and Alex immediately capitalizing on that out-of-position placement. Not Big Red will fall as a result, but it is DC on the other side to also face their own difficulties. As a result, for New Bern A, it's the perfect opportunity to work your way in. Now officially at a numbers advantage. It's Alex, gotta be careful on that storm as they now take the height after all of the fighting is done for them here.
Easy just trying to escape the skin of their teeth too, waiting for the perfect time to get away from them, and they are not in a good spot here and now. As you mentioned it, the #1 squad so far, 172 points. The final 6 players as well, 2 from one squad, I think 1 from another, and 3 from the team that we do see from New Bern High Team A on the screen right now. But still a lot of action happening between these two teams. It feels just like a matter of time for Easy and the rest of the team from Southwest Edgecombe High Team C to get knocked out.
Southwest here now as a duo forced to make the rotate, and I'll tell you what, it's a great off angle already sustained by the 3rd member here of New Bern A. They need to make that drop. Zach has already laid in damage. Shot though from the back end's got to be really careful. Alex as well. We're talking about a sparing distance, and Zach will get knocked from height here, but it's no better for Wesley and Peasy. While they do have height, they themselves, with stickies in action, have to be so careful how they address this.
Difficult situation for Peasy and Wesley because they don't have much HP, and the third party is still alive. It's Peace all the way on the other end. They're trying to see what they can do to stay alive as much as possible. Let the other two teams face each other, finish each other off. That's exactly what's happening. Alex loses, and finally someone else wins. Peace is able to get the victory for Currituck County High Team A.
Currituck finally coming through here, and all it took was just a little bit of a lull, taking the time to slow the pace completely, allowing these other teams, even as a solo, by the way, there in the end,
Wow.
to fight it out was such a crucial factor here for Kurtuk. And we've been talking about it. They've literally been on the cusp, on the edge of the top 4, constantly competing for a confident position over both New Bern and Southwest Edgecombe. Hopefully, this is a win that cements them here with a position towards our state finals.
They lasted so much longer than the B team for New Bern High, so that's going to be a huge boost in points for them and probably put them over top of them, depending on how many eliminations came out from that team. And also getting that final elimination to 4-piece was huge. I mean, the big thing for Kurtuk, we saw it happen a couple times. They were on the edge of the zone so many times, but had 1 or 2 players remain, rotate, not focus on the other teams, and just wait for their time to strike. And that seemed to be the strategy that was necessary for them to come out on top. But wow, what a great finish. We had 2 more rounds after this, Zephyr. I can't wait.
All right, with that being said, we're going to go to a short break. And when we come back, we are officially past our halfway point for the teams that need to catch up. This is your last opportunity, your last opportunities to make it count.
2 more.
Howdy, howdy, Fortnite fam. Welcome back to the VESL Regional Qualifiers here. 3 games done and out past our halfway point, and only 2 more opportunities to accumulate the points that will send you to the state finals. Teams like New Bern, teams like Southwest, teams like now Currituck, who came through with the first win over New Bern A here, showing up for our top 4 as it stands.
What's also huge too, we talked about Southwest Edgecombe as well. They got 3rd and 13 eliminations, so they're looking pretty good themselves. I think they're cementing a little bit more above New Bern High B as the way that they placed that last go around and how hectic things were for a lot of those teams who kind of got bunched up with their rotations and didn't know exactly where some of the squads were coming from. So you definitely tell a lot of the teams kind of more came from Rumble Ruins, Creaky Compound, Eclipse Estate towards Brutal Bastion. And that's why so many of the different teams ended up in the same area towards the end there.
And the big thing here is you are beginning to tell where some of the issues do fall, but stuff like this is what we have been searching for. Early contests on our point of interest. The very beginning of the game here. Minor NPC fights, but it is Anthony and crew who show up almost immediately. Evan, the luck on the other side will be immediately brought down to 14, but you lost, face it, is dropped just as quickly. It is dire straits here.
Oh, so unfortunate to say too, because Evan Lux is a player from Southwest High Team E, and they have not had the best of luck with the way that they've been placing and dropping in the amount of matches they've played so far. The first match they were 12th, but now they seem to be the first team eliminated this go around, and have not had the best luck, but maybe they've just been continuing to go to Slappy Shores and finding other great teams that are out there.
Congratulations, though, to West Craven High. Once again, a very successful start. They get their hands completely alone on this vault here and the rest of these NPCs. This is, I believe, the 3rd time that we have seen West Craven High defeat an early contest, walk away from it with all that point spread, and then the loot to behold.
Craven High have been doing pretty decent for themselves so far. I mean, last go around they didn't place as well as they would have liked to, but they definitely got a lot more eliminations. 6 eliminations, 6 points, so they are hawking some of those teams in that top 4, but now it really just depends on how far they are able to go in these last 2 rounds and if they can push the issue and push into the top 4 for that.
Right. And it is a shame, too, for West Craven. I mean, like you said, super duper close towards pressuring for that top 4. Just having a lot of issues converting some of the kill presence that they do have into high placement, right? In terms of these last 3 games, we talk about 7th, 10th, 6th. These are not the placements that are going to represent when we talk about the overall point standing to send you into a good spot, to send you into a position towards our state finals. You need to be repping that 3rd, 2nd, 1st, something that is consistently seen from New Bern A and B and Southwest Edgecombe.
I'm really curious to see exactly how these 2 teams who've been actually pushing up a little bit in placement so far, the JP Knapp ECH School A and B teams, they are currently around the middle of the pack and been trying to see how far they can push the issue a couple of times here and there, but we really haven't seen too much from them so far, and really want to see how that team is able to progress throughout these last 2 rounds, if they can maybe get some more eliminations or better placement. But there's some teams that we haven't really seen too much of the spotlight on so far during the first 3 rounds.
Not at all here, and it is something that leaves lots of questions on the mind. As at least right now, we will begin to continue to see at least West Raven on their looting presence. This is the time here, but once again, we see them get all of the mats that they need, and even starting to use some of those mobility items to get that one moving just a bit further to keep this POI under hold, and yes, get to the flag, get that extra loot.
All the loot possible. Slappy Shores is a pretty good POI for just getting all the different crates, because there are so many in this area and so much luck you can have. And you saw Lek usually was the one last round that we saw land around Slappy Shores, but they probably diverted because they saw that team there last go around. So now they're trying to get some vision, see if they can see where everyone is coming from, and then maybe push it on Slappy Shores. So we might get our 2nd team fight happening here in just a moment.
Seconds away potentially from the action. It's just a matter of
goes.
which they see it. Hadion is caught out here. Now down to just a single 20 health remaining, and Exetic is very quick on the heels to take advantage. You gotta pray, you gotta hope they've got some kind of blast, some kind of rocket ram to get out of this situation. Because the
Swimming
ocean,
away.
that ain't the place you want to be, buddy.
No, it is not, but it makes it a little bit harder for them to get to you because you can go a little bit faster if you know the mechanics behind it. So they are able to escape. Adon is able to get away. Not Big Red in a position too, and it looks like that's another team, actually, the ones who won last time that are in that spot. Currituck County High looking to see what they can do this go around.
Something to set them up for now. Hadion, though, one big question is the remnants of the team, right? Major separation here with really no one, at least, to spot out. The one in crew looking to now take advantage of the cars constantly utilized, and I believe that alone, the reboot button, trying to get the remnants of his team back in there, but unable to do so before being spawned out. It's a good shot.
Yeah, that means the whole squad is down for that team, unfortunately, to say the least. So they'll have to go into that last round and go out swinging if they want a chance to make it into the top 4. With the way that they place this go around, it might be impossible with how well the top teams have been performing consistently. I mean, it's nice to see that there's been so much consistency for those top teams that are out there. And speaking of top teams that are out there, this is still the #1 squad, the New Bern High Team A, who got their second place that we saw in that last round, but still 16 eliminations. The eliminations are going down a little bit here and there each round, but still their lead is so insurmountable.
There are 35 players left in this lobby, and granted, we know the exact remnants of where they are located, but seeing 5 elims just here, Xavier already right off the bat. That doesn't spell well for anyone who wants to catch. I don't think catching up is a thing, but pushing the limits of upper 300, maybe even 400 for this team, very capable.
Well, now we have some updated point totals here. We did talk a little bit about Currituck County High and how they were performing. Well, with that Victory Royale, they had also 6 eliminations, so they are currently in 3rd place over top of the B team coming out of New Bern High. So looking pretty good for themselves. New Bern High, 100 points, and the one right underneath that is West Craven High that we saw before, who were in 5th place at 73, down by 30 points. So a lot of teams still have so much to make up if they want to get into that top echelon. Speaking of New Bern High, the C team, who did really well in the first round, didn't get a single elimination in round 3 either, and placed only 10th there too, so they're still pretty far away from even making it back into that top 4.
We'll have to see. New Bern B definitely kind of taking a little bit more of a slower take towards our second half of games here, falling early even if it's at the hands of their own namesake, New Bern A. Now, granted, we have seen West Craven successfully go for the wipes in the early game, but that's that transition point that we talked about earlier that we're looking to still see evolve. It has gotten better, though. In this most recent game, a 6th place finish with 6 elims there, their best yet in terms of average point.
Really what they need is to hope that one of the top 4 teams currently are eliminated, and then after that they can go and try and place high, because right now with the current pace of things, the top 4 teams are staying the top 4 teams with how well they've been performing.
It's still very much possible. One good Victory Royale is a 25-point eclipse that you're able to take advantage of. If you rock it with some extra elims on top of that, these 2 games should be enough to push you into the top if you're, say, in the hands of West Craven, only 30 points behind.
That's going to be a huge lookout for that team to see how that they can perform there, but not Big Red. And talking about Currituck, they are feeling the pressure there as they are getting taken down by Father Voice, and they're just exchanging these shots here and there. So looking pretty good for West Craven, as we were just talking about them.
Yeah, West Craven already delivering on this exchange. Hopefully we can take a look at that fight here, as it's not just them. On the other side of the map, Southwest Edgecombe, another one of our top 4, continuing to cement themselves in the top positions, at least in that 2nd place overall here. We're going to jump on over to our friends New Bern A. They are haven't quite seen them, at least just yet, pick up that KP, but at least from this position, they'll hunt llamas instead.
Yeah, it's always nice to get some loot and some full pots so that they can have all the shields necessary once it comes down to getting into those fights. And you know, a team that's as aggressive as New Bern High A, they're going to be the ones to use as many of those resources as possible. It looks like they are getting shot at by someone who is holding on to the mega city from maybe the outskirts of it, or the top end of it, as we can see here at the high rise. Not really too much Alex can do except just get into that box and maybe see if they can get a sniper shot out of some sort to just knock them down and make it so the rest of their team can push forward. But Monk is just playing a dangerous game here, it feels like.
No box, no care in the world, single cover, using the landscape. Alex decides, I'm going to fix this straight ahead here, moving further and further forward, and I believe overrated. Anyway, it's Southwest. This has been an issue for them early games, especially against teams like New Bern has been an issue. Titanium Bear, please, no. To fall would be to be air. Overrated bot to do the same. Gloop Glop even losing shields on the high rise.
This team has struggled a lot, as we talked about, but they're actually at the middle of the pack a little bit. They're 10th place currently. They haven't gotten an elimination yet, but they've been 9th, 7th, and 7th, so this would be an earlier elimination on their side of things, and you can see the #1 team in the lobby right now is pursuing them, and if I was any team facing off against them, I would run as quickly as I could.
Xavier here extending himself to potentially look for Gloop Glop, but this is something I brought up early on when we approached at least the Mega City in Game 2. It's the fact that it's a tough map. I mean, it's a tough area. It's an issue of finding those to capitalize on. If Overrated Bot and Gloop Glop want to keep quiet, they can't. You don't have to play any kind of box here. The fact that Overrated Bot is even playing the height here is an ego move at that. Zach and Alex gonna see if they can take advantage. Now quickly spelling this area out.
Oh, an Overrated Bot is quickly getting shot at too. They're not able to do anything as they are knocked here. And really, if I was their teammate, I would have used that distraction to just run away, because that would have been the perfect time for them to escape. A Gloop Glop did not do that. They were actually pushing forward, pushing the issue, and they need to go for placement if they want to have any semblance of a chance in potentially the final round after this to make it into that top 4. Because if they do get eliminated here, I mean, it's a far shot for them to even make it into close firing range of the top 4, as they are just hiding out as best they can.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like it's an eventuality that they might be found, but somehow they're able to navigate. They're going for that revive token to take that away instead. And you know what? I will say that was a gutsy move, but it's gonna work out.
Hey, at least for now here, the reboot truck just a ways ahead in front of New Bern A, who will take advantage, who will take this height, and most importantly, who will see you here.
Now let's see what this team is. Oh, it's New Bern B that they're facing off against. The tale as old as time. These two squads have fired off against each other, and this is the earliest we have seen them face off. But we also did, you mentioned it in that last round, New Bern B got eliminated pretty early on, 12th with only 4 eliminations. And if New Bern B do go down here, it's going to make it even harder for them to hold on to that top 4 spot.
This would be the perfect opportunity for West Craven to get back into this, to get into one of those top 4 positions if we see New Bern B falter here. But I think they themselves know that just as much as anyone else, but it is those sticky grenades from afar downtown. James Brown Orange will be dropped here, and now a 3v4 situation.
Another
question is, does New Bern really want to give up the height? They've got, like you said, that squad across from them.
I don't think they're going to worry too much about it here. It really depends on where the zone is coming from. You can see Viciousness and JD on Zaza just knew they couldn't press the issue there. And a 4th squad is coming in now from the Storm. And it looks like only 2 players, though. So maybe they are fragmented. It's only a little bit under 25 players remain at this point in time. The team who's on the hill seems to have the best vantage point because they know the Storm's behind them. They know that likely there's not going to be another team rotating in other than the one that we did see coming in from the distance. So I'm curious on what that squad is going to do. I think they're just going to wait for the Storm to push in and just hold out as best they can. And I think that's Gloop Glop all the way down there towards the left side.
I like if I see a single member standing like that, I'm gonna bet my money on a Gloop Glop rat over on the side, as we will see that trio
3 players, yeah,
actually make their way in here, and it looks like up on the high hill, potentially seeing them as well. But it is all the tension on New Bern. Completely caught out initially. They will get orange back up, of course. Problem being that though they are still focused in. No cover anymore.
No cover. They're pushing onto that team that did have that solo player that was across the river, I guess you could see. Now the team that came from the middle of the storm going towards the top of the hill as well, trying to converge, but really the best positioning that we have is this team in the Mega City. And Mega City's now been a 3rd time that the Storm has gone towards with the way things have been progressing so far. And it is Peace from the team who came out on first last time, Kurtuk, who was the team who had the trio that came out of the Storm.
Kurtuk here on their way up, and just across from them, it is West Craven on the opposite side here. It is not a fight that you want to take. Kurtuk is not the team you are looking to contest against. You want them to potentially be in a position to fall well in before you have to face that issue. And even for West Craven, who most notably is missing players, Anthony has to win this 1v1, especially for the reboot bus to come in from X-Edit to get this team back into play. Anthony utilizing at least the cannon right now. There's the one. There's Fathered Voice. They are at a numbered advantage here now against Kurtuk. And her wish might run to Anthony, but mind you, none of them in the best chunk of loot, in the best chunk of health right now, as that storm is burning.
That storm is burning, and we saw so many players eliminated from the storm last go around. You can see as it is chunking the HP of Anthony a little bit. Father Voice is just on the outskirts of it too. That one trying to see how far they can go, but so many players are taking damage from the storm, but the rocket is going to help a lot there. Father Voice down, Ender Wish down. That one is getting shot at too from Drew in the storm, who's been surviving as long as they can. It seems the storm is going to be getting a lot of eliminations this time, but if you can get the final few shots on someone before they go down, that means you'll likely be credited with it, depending on how far these players can go and if they can survive on it. But that's New Bern High B who are trying to make it, and they do have a couple players here that are still surviving, but someone's in the water right now. That's a bad spot to be in too.
I can only assume it is New Bern A. Yeah, losing out on their height here. New Bern B is going to look for new areas ahead, as West Craven has taken spots at least on the middle ground right now.
Reboot
out ahead
too.
Yeah, Reboot getting one player back in, leveling the score. As we've got quite an interesting zone all the way down here towards the south. It is a bit of the mix of that ocean, a bit of that lake that comes into this, and it can be incredibly hard, especially if you have these supports going back and forth over none of the landscape. Remember, so many of these teams will be brought down by bad positioning here.
We've seen this one house get built upon so many times as well before. There we see Peasy as well, still alive, trying to see what they can do. From Southwest Edgecombe High Team C, who's been doing really good. The second place team trying to see how far they can survive. And all of the big players, for the most part, alive. But Divine Gray, we haven't seen a feature from New Bern High Team C in a while, and this is the longest they have survived since that first round.
Now, I will say Southwest Edgecombe is the most challenging team to set yourself upon. I love this from ECD Dark, and start to send themselves forward. See if they can start this fight out here. We tune in with ECD Dark, navigating through the tarps here to see if they can potentially find one of these members of New Bern C. And you're going to have to travel a bit higher. The box is blocked. No edits in store. Still looking for angles.
Crazy spot to be in, to say the least, as shots are being fired from left and right.
Whoa!
So it's able to get one elimination and a second knock too, trying to see what they can do afterwards. They're just going to be focusing on the heals, and wisely to do so, because of how hectic it was just then. But what a lucky coincidence for everyone to fall into the box, but one person, ECD Dark, to get the 2 elims.
For Southwest Edgecombe, it's about as good as it gets, and it's even another one picked up here, as it will be Nub Utopia found out in the corner for Dark to pick up that third. And now look at this, 11 total over there on the side. A huge game for Southwest Edgecombe.
Huge pickup here for Southwest Edgecombe. We're looking to try and push into
I've seen this.
a contest for like a first spot. Divine Gray just going to be camping out. They don't really need to do too much here, waiting for everyone else to do the necessary damage to each other and then hopefully see how far that they can survive. But Southwest Edgecombe, you can see them rotating around. This is that New Bern High Team A just trying to hold out a bit as well, but now they're facing off against Anthony in that one as well, and they are not going to be able to survive this fight. They are getting pushed down. Anthony somehow used the rocket ram, almost getting knocked down there, but survives
No
the last
way.
second. Sir get down, says that to Mr. President, who is Anthony in this scenario, and somehow saves the day for them.
Well, it's not the best position, though, knowing that it's a 1v4. They say, why are we taking the hard fight when we can pick up an easy elim for West Craven? It is a full drop. And the only question now that remains is, where is New Bern B? I can only assume it's this squad out here on the barge.
Yep.
New Bern A taking advantage. It is a separation. The launch pad's already in use. JD gonna see if he can make his way across. Vicious. Last team member separate. Remember what I talked about, though, the water. Super hard to play here. You
Oh, there we
will
go.
be taken advantage of.
And taken out as well. Vicious, the last member remaining for this squad. The other two tried to escape on the launch pad and were sniped out of the air. And that's happened a couple times for teams who have faced off against this New Bern High Team A. And Vicious, I think they're just having a good time, but they go down. GG for them. There's still a couple more players remaining here and there from different squads.
You can see New Bern C's Divine Gray still alive, and surprisingly, Currituck's pushed Scroll here also up as well as Edgecombe. So of our top four, 3 of those teams still within it. It is the remnants of C from New Bern. Push Scroll will be caught out immediately. Divine Gray looking to be the next, and I believe it's going to be a 4v4 here between New Bern A and Southwest Edgecombe.
Oh, there goes New Bern C, as that was Divine Gray taken out there. So now it is a different scenario here between these final 2 teams who remain against each other. You see Dark Wesley circuit down and Easy looking to do what they can in this scenario, but Monk is pushing in a dangerous position for those players.
Zach FN so far forward alongside Monk. Alex and Xavier holding the back end. Xavier setting up the height for future further. ECD, Dark Wesley, and Sir get down, all sharing the same box. You got to worry about Peasy a little bit, but Monk keeping him in line as Xavier has now officially arrived to play sightlines. Wesley caught out from Alex, and my apologies, Zach on the side. Sir get down, potentially next is Alex leaps forward in our 3v4 situation. New Bern A completely in control of the height.
They are, and it's going to come down to how this zone is going to influence where they are moving as well. Peasy has no HP, basically somehow still alive for a second, but does get knocked. Xavier, a fraction of some help to Alex, does get out of there. Circuit down is also down themselves, so it looks like only 1 player remains. ECD Dark taken down by Monks, and it will be a 3rd victory for New Bern High Team A, as they are 100% cemented as the #1 team.
I have to say, I feel like they felt bad after that last one. They were a little upset. They kind of came into this one thinking straight through 5 for 5, and losing out that last game to Currituck shot them forward to know that they had to win the 4th of our 5th series here. Congratulations, though, to Edgecombe once again, and even Currituck surviving as that rat, and Divine giving us some deja vu as New Bern C there in the end. The real question, though, on our minds is, was it enough for West Craven? How close are the points now?
Because of how long the teams that we just mentioned survived. I mean, Southwest Edgecombe were 2nd, and Currituck were 3rd, and they survived towards the end as well as getting a couple eliminations leading up to it too. So I don't think it was enough for West Craven High.
But I will say this. Even though they went down, the team that followed suit immediately after them was New Bern B. So it is a 1-point difference, I believe, in terms of placement. I mean, it's not going to be, we're likely to see New Bern be still in that top 4, but I assume the gap has closed ever so slightly with West Craven picking up more elims this time around.
Well, we have one final round to go to see how these players. Oh, actually, that's it. There are no
That's
more
it?
rounds from what we have been told.
Oh,
That is
apparently.
the cutoff for these teams because that is the clock for high school for these players. They can only play for
Oh.
so long, so that's as long as we got to see there. But we're going to tally
Okay.
up the scores to see exactly what the top teams are going to be. So congrats to the teams who have made it forward. We kind of
Darn.
have an idea for the most part, but we'll take a quick
Yeah.
break, and then after that, we'll be back with those point totals and the 4 teams moving on from the Coastal Conference to the state championships in the new year.
Welcome back to the VESL Regional Qualifiers here. We had 4 great, excellent games, 4 games for these teams to tally up their points, and now only 4 teams to send to the state finals.
That is true. Our first team heading to the state finals is going to be the team of New Bern High Team A with a total of 299 points at the end of the day. One off a big 300. I mean, that's the totals you typically would see in FNCS competition. So kudos to them. I mean, the smallest amount of eliminations that they were able to get was in round 3 when they got second with 16, which is just nuts to think about.
Smallest, a massive 32-point
No one
elim
eclipsed
lead
that
is
ever,
the
by the way.
tiniest thing. Oh yeah, no other team ever managed to get as many elims them across any one of their games. They topped out the highest point scoring in every single one of their games. Even the game that they did not win in round 3, they still had a higher score than Currituck.
The lowest placement was second for them, so kudos to them. Speaking of second, the second place team who moves on to the state finals, Southwest Edgecombe High, Team C. Third, fourth, third, and then second at the end of it with 2 back-to-back 13 elimination games and a 10 elimination game for round 2. So they were hot on the heels of this team that did come in first, New Bern High Team A. So kudos to them for getting that second place spot, but really the team who came out of nowhere, I'd say for the most part, in those final few rounds, but also looked really good in round 1, was Currituck County High with third place. They had 14 eliminations, the second highest elimination total aside from New Bern High Team A. And they were able to get that one victory, the only other team to get a victory royale in round 3, 4th place in the final one. And also talk about 4th place, our final team to make it into that top 4. New Bern High Team B barely edging it out over top of the team of West Craven High just by a few points here and there, 129 points to 111 points there. Those 2 second place finishes in the first 2 rounds, carrying them pretty heavily, but also the eliminations and decent placement they had towards the end.
And there you go. Every game counts, every point, whether it's 1 or 18 here between 4th and 5th. Once again, though, a major congratulations to our 4 teams moving on, both New Bern High Teams A and B, Southwest Edgecombe Team C, and Currituck High finding their way in as a surprise. We wish you the best of the luck here as y'all approach the state finals. I remind y'all, though, at home, it isn't the end. We say goodbye to our coastal clash, but we continue to introduce the rest of Carolina here as we make our way through the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
It's going to be a great time, Zephyr. Tomorrow, we're going to be having Triangle, Foothills, and Wake as the conferences that are facing off in the central region for North Carolina for that next matchup. 5 more drops to go, 4 more teams to join the 4 we talked about today. And it's going to be a great one, starting around the same time to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Right. You don't want to miss it, and it's going to be an amazing competition there. Zephyr, any final thoughts from you before we send things away for the evening and get ready for some more Fortnite tomorrow?
I'll tell you what, if anyone shows up and shows out the same way from New Bern, I can only hope and pray for the teams